Good evening, Council. My name is Azam Jabshi. I'm the City Traffic Engineer.
Good evening, Council. My name is Okan Demirci. I'm the Contract CIP Manager.
Good evening. My name is Ziad Mazbouri, and I'm a contract project manager.
Good evening. My name is Ramon Mendez, and I'm the engineering project manager.
I would like to announce that Ramon is a new addition. He's been with us for about a month. So he comes to us from the Central Coast and took the opportunity here in San Bernardino. So we're glad to have Eddie here with us. I don't think the clicker is working. Am I supposed to be pointing at certain? Okay. That's a little sensitive. Okay, perfect. So tonight's agenda, we will be discussing a high-level overview of a typical project delivery. So that's the next slide. Then we'll be providing an overview of our CIP. Then our staff will get into specific project details. Then we will discuss budget impacts. And lastly, we'll discuss project management staffing levels. So the image on this slide is a good overview at a high level of our project phases. On the next slide, we'll get into sub-phases of the three main phases and the typical duration, but for this slide, we'll provide it at a high level. So to the left, you have the planning phase, which can include environmental documentation, right-of-way acquisition, geotech investigation, survey, utility search, permitting, preliminary engineering. And then once that phase is complete, we get into the design phase. And this is the preparation of plans and specifications. Once those plans and specifications are prepared, then we move into the construction phase. And this is the physical delivery of that project. So getting into the sub-information of those phases. As previously indicated, the project planning could include environmental or right-of-way acquisition, and this process typically can take six months to a year. Next, the design. As I mentioned, this is the preparation of plans and specifications that can take 6 months to a year. Once those plans and specifications are complete, a notice inviting bids, which in essence is the proposal, the RFP, is prepared for the contracting community. This can typically take three months. Next is the construction phase. So once awarded, a notice to proceed is issued and the construction begins. This process can be estimated anywhere from 6 months to a year. Lastly, once the construction is complete, construction punch lists are verified, punch list items are verified, change orders are finalized, and a notice of completion is filed with the county, the project can be officially closed out. So if you add the total durations, a typical project takes 2 years to 4 years. But we have active projects that are estimated to be around 7 years. And a good example of the project that was just presented to you at our last council meeting was the SPCTA Mount Vernon project. So that's an atypical project, but our typical projects fall within this workflow process. So next into the overview of the projects, this slide provides project specifics relative to the phasing of the projects, as I showed in the previous, and we're staying consistent with the colors. For here, you can see that, for tonight's discussion, we are going to be focused on our active projects. So right now, the active projects represent 72 of the overall 144 projects, which is 50% of our projects. As projects are completed, then they will move into the closeout phase. Once those are closed out, then we can move projects from our non-activated into our active projects. So non-activated projects are projects that are not assigned to staff or have no approved funding. The projects that are highlighted in this square right here, plus the closeout, represent 76% of our overall projects. This slide provides a breakdown of CIP projects by funding and phase. As I mentioned, the green bar represents our active projects, and our active projects represent 70% of our funding, which is approximately $118 million. The combination of active and closeout projects is approximately $148 million of the CIP, of which the city has received $35.3 million of grant funding, which is a testament to former and current staff's diligence in pursuing grant funding. This next slide breaks down the projects by category type. So the project category types are at the bottom. The categories are buildings, parks, storm drains, streets, traffic control, and others. The sum of the project, as I mentioned, is 144 projects, which are broken. We provided even further breakdown of these projects to determine which ones are actually active. So, for example, in the 51 streets projects, which represents 35% of the overall project portfolio, 27 are of active projects. For parks, which is our next largest project category, there's 31 parks projects, and 12 are active. As you can see, both streets and parks projects make up more than half of the city's CIP. And more project detail will be provided as staff goes through the specific project details. Much like the previous slide, this slide is broken down by category and its respective funding. As was indicated by the total number of projects, Parks and Streets projects represent about $107 million of the city's CIP budget, which is 62% of the overall budget. We also provided funding by the active projects. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, there are a number of active projects. So in the streets projects, of the $70 million total budget, 43.1 million are of active projects. Next, I'll hand it over to Susan Pan, our acting city engineer, who will provide an overview of the project-specific slides, and then each of our project managers will provide the detail of their respective projects.
Okay. Okay, so we have a standard format that we're presenting each project. So as you can see that at the top is the project title. So in this case, the first project is the Encanto Community Center Improvements Project. And on the left-hand side, we have the project location map. And then on the right-hand side, we have the general information about the project, starting with the top, the project category. So we will be presenting the projects from the building projects, and then the parks projects, and then storm drain projects, and streets and traffic control. And then on the far right is the ward that the project is located in. So in some cases, there may be multiple wards, and even all wards that the projects are located in. And then the project description and the project that was approved by the city council, the date it was approved, and the budget that was approved for this project, and the total estimated project cost. So especially for ongoing projects, that can be cost that we need to be regularly updating. So this is our projection at this point of time. And then the budget status, which will show that whether it's within budget or if we have a shortfall. And then for shortfall projects, we all have a proposal to how to resolve the shortfall situation. And then and in some cases that we have a surplus, for projects that are nearing closeout. And then at the bottom, that shows the project status timeline. So we show the next 5 fiscal years. So like FY 22-23, that's what we're coming to an end, this fiscal year. So the project, the status, whether, in the 3 major category, whether it's in planning, design, or construction. So that kind of shows the projected timeline and then the estimated project completion date. So it is by month and year. So we have some, our traffic engineer, CIP program manager, and our engineering project manager, so they will be taking turns to present their projects. So anyway, all right. Sia, go ahead.
Encanto Community Center improvement project include the remodeling and rehabilitation of the community center, including gymnasium, offices, the pool area. And staff has been working closely with the Park and Rec department to finalize the design of the project. And we're expecting the completion at this time of this project to be July 2024.
That's for the, that's for design, or is that for everything, construction and all that?
The 7/20/24 is for completion of construction.
I'm not sure you guys included this. Do you guys have a description of the funding source?
Probably ought to turn on
You guys, I'm not sure you guys included any of these, the funding source, right? Some of these are measured.
This is a
some of these are measured,
CDBG
right?
funded project.
CDBG, yeah, but, it's CDBG funded
Yes.
entirely?
There's some additional money that's allocated for it. That's not
Just for
CDBG.
future reference, it'd be good to include the funding source.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
And the long-term goal for this, for that park still remains that the department will be moving to that location at some point in the future, is my understanding as well. Is that still the case? The department, Parks and Rec Department, at some future point will be moving to that location? That's my understanding?
So we
I
do,
believe that is the case.
Okay.
so we do have our Parks Director who's actively working with us, so she provides a lot of useful insight to the Parks projects.
That's not gonna work out, because I'm gonna say, go back
I
to
think it's gonna be
slide
kind of difficult
24.
to do. I would
We're
like
not
to.
We need to go over these as they come up. Otherwise,
I think it's gonna be kind of hard to go over them, save up all the questions and then deal with them. I think it's best to deal with them while they're in front of us.
I do have one question for staff on the budgeting that we have.
However, let's try to minimize, and we don't want to be here till 3 in the morning. This is very important, of course, and I'm not trying to hurry it along. We can take as long as we need, but let's try to, we've got a lot to cover here.
Sure, and by record, I'm usually the one that asks less questions. So my question is that 3.3 million, that is supposed to be the budget from beginning to end for these projects, correct? Not per phase?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, let me just explain. For some projects later on, you will come across that we only have the budget for the design, may not have it for the construction yet. But for this project, it does include, the construction cost. Yeah, so Lydia can
Liddy,
comment on.
go ahead.
The funding for the project was an endowment of $3.1 million in additional CDBG funding. And then as far as moving all of the staff, not the entire department will be moving. It would just be our athletic staff, and it'll be considered a community center, and it'll be the first STEAM center in the city of San Bernardino.
If I can provide that, the funding for this, there are actually 4 sources of funding. There's a donation fund, it's about $208,000, and then there's a CDBG, that's $658,000, and then CDBG CV3 fund, and that's about $371,000, and then lastly, there's a cultural fund, that's about $246,000. So we do keep track of the entire funding budget information. Okay.
All right. That's not working now. Okay. Sorry about that. The Fifth Street Senior Center kitchen, the project included the repainting of the facility, installing flooring, kitchen appliances, and this is an important project that was almost completed, as you heard earlier. However, we had the health department come up with a list of things that they wanted us to incorporate, and we just received it last week and received a proposal for the additional work. So this will be coming back to you to move forward and complete the repairs needed. And we're expecting it to be done shortly.
Next project is California Theater Renovation Project. The proposed improvements includes pipe organ restoration, sound system upgrades, structural and safety improvements, lighting, HVAC, mechanical improvements, ADA compliance, and related improvements at the California Theater. The project budget is approximately $4.9 million. We are currently in design phase. We have a contractor, design-build contractor, working on the project. Our anticipated completion timeline is by fiscal year 24-25.
I didn't hear electronics.
There's going to be electronic improvements to acoustic sound improvements.
No, I mean electronics, not acoustics. Right. No, not electrification. Like, they're still working on bulbs in the theater. What are you going to do as far as upgrading the electronics? That was the first on the list.
I'm
No,
not
not-
sure
not-
electronics is the right word. When you say bulbs, did you say
Right.
bulbs?
Right, they're still working on
So
19. They're
that would be
working on
electrical, not electronics.
Right, electrical is because I don't see that. That was the first thing. They're still working on 1960s electrical in the California Theater.
So as part of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Phase are you guys in? Are you guys in design phase?
We are in design phase, yeah.
So is that part of the scope?
It is part of the scope, yeah.
Well, that's fine, but I don't see it. If I don't see it, I don't think you're going to do it. So just keep that in mind, and that's the end of my question. Electrical, because if you ever walk through there, it's 1960. If we're going to do all this money and put all this money in it, we might as well, renovate it correctly, including the electrical portion of it. And that's all I got to say, because we got a lot to go through. And is that a part of Senator Leva's $2.5 million? Is that a part of that that's in here?
The total funding is $4.9 million. So the 2.5 is the Arts Commission funding. There's a special funding as part of the project, but the total improvements is $4.9 million. So it is part of the electronic improvements, basically like LED upgrades to existing lighting is part of the proposed improvements.
I'll talk to you sidebar.
Okay. No. Okay, thank you. The next project is Carousel Mall Demolition Project. The proposed improvements include hazmat abatement and demolishing the existing facilities at Carousel Mall facility. The total budget is approximately $8 million. The contractor, again, this is a design-built entity, and the contractor is currently working on the hazmat abatement portion of the project, and the anticipated completion is February 2024.
The Paul Villaseñor Library Building Improvement Project include flooring, painting, and ADA compliance improvements. The City Council just approved last week a change order to deal with mold and termite damage that were found at the facility, but at this time we're expecting completion to be done by December of this year.
Why is this, the document showing two different, it's not just Paul, it's not the library on Mount Vernon, but you're also showing a picture of the Marshall and Sierra Way Library in the photo. Is there any reason? Oh, it's covering both, okay. It's listed as just the one, so.
Right. We're only encountering the termite problem in the Paul Villaseñor Library, not the other one. So the other one, work is complete. So the rural library is complete? Yes.
It's complete?
Complete.
But they were bid together, so they're one project. They're separate in terms of the,
This report, couldn't it say this one's complete and this one's not?
we have a slide that shows completed projects.
So the next project is New Animal Shelter. This project is essentially developing a new animal shelter building, parking, walkways, and exercise yards. So we're currently in the preliminary design phase of the project. There is a preliminary design report being prepared by a consultant. The total budget for the design phase only is approximately $379,000. And the anticipated completion for the future fund, which is the construction phase, which is not funded at this time, we're anticipating in the next fiscal years. Basically, the project is currently partially funded for design phase only.
Yes, my question, on this new animal shelter, have we selected a location for the new animal shelter?
So, as part of the preliminary design report, part of the study is basically a feasibility study, basically preparing concepts, estimates, and proposed locations as part of the preliminary design report. So, we are in the currently preliminary phase, planning level, identifying proposed locations as well as part of the planning level.
Thank
So
you.
it's kind of a feasibility design,
It's a preliminary feasibility design. It's prior the plans and specifications. It's the preliminary design phase. Yeah, we're looking at alternatives, layouts, estimates, and concepts. This is not going to give us a complete plans and specifications. This is a prior step at a planning level to basically come up with concepts and planning level documents so that we can proceed with the final design based on the recommendations on that preliminary design.
design fit within the budget 378,000? Or
Uh,
we have to budget out for final design?
We are waiting for the recommendations from the consultant. Based on those recommendations, we can present to council those options so that we can look for additional funding as well.
This- The installation of automatic entry doors at 6 locations. This project is to incorporate some ADA compliant automatic door at 6 facilities. This is a CDBG funded project and it's ongoing, almost completed. We're expected to be done by July of this year.
Again, the only question I'd ask is why aren't we listing the 6 locations?
Can staff provide those 6 locations? Yes. Right now?
You guys don't know where they have?
Yeah, the 6 locations, we got like 2 years ago.
Well, it would
I
just be
do
really easy to,
know
if it
some
says
of
6
them,
locations,
but-
to give the addresses.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I can recall, where actually one of them is in this building, and then we have the Fifth Street Senior Center, and then we have it at the library location, several of the library locations. So we can provide. a
That's
complete
fine. My
list.
only comment is if we don't need to go from memory, it probably should have been listed on the report. So let's go ahead to the next one. Or go ahead.
Can I put in a request also that from here on out, in your quick descriptions, you also include the funding source, so we start to get an idea where the money's coming from, whether it's general fund, ARPA, Measure S, grant funding, just CDBG, just include it in there, if you have it available, just as a side note. It would have been good to have it here, but since
Right.
it's not, if you can just tell us.
Okay, so that's an excellent suggestion. We actually do have plan to have a one-page layout printout format, so we can produce a CIP report. And so in that one-page layout, we already have the setup to show all the funding sources and the amount.
So
that can
so I think what I'm hearing you say is that
Yeah.
each project would have a one-page matrix that would, at a glance, you could see
Yeah.
everything associated with that, funding, status, the whole 9 yards. Thank you.
Yeah,
So in a later slide, I do want to talk about project management and what the efforts that we've undertaken. So this is a standard template, and this is our first iteration of this. Obviously, we haven't given the CIP update in some time. So any feedback that we receive today, when we come back for the next quarterly report out, our intent is to improve that process. So.
So the next project on the list is Paris Hill Senior Center roof replacement. This project is currently in construction phase. Project involves rehabilitation of existing roof structure and related improvements at Paris Hill Senior Center facility. We are progressing in the construction, getting to close out. By August 2023, we're anticipating to close out this project. The next project is police locker room renovation. The project involves replacement of plumbing and remodeling locker rooms as part of the police locker room improvements. So this funding level budget, $500,000, is for design and construction at this time. So we are in planning phase. We are getting ready to procure design contract for the proposed improvements. And the anticipated completion of the project is in fiscal year 25-26.
One other recommendation for your next report would be that maybe you could highlight the status in a different color, for example, so that we see that planning, design, construction, all that schedule, but maybe by highlighting it, screening it in the background or highlighting it in a different color, we can see exactly what status it's in at the moment.
Okay, got it. Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you.
The City Hall server room HVAC project include the installation of new AC units for the server room. And this project is expected to be completed in October of this year, and this is funded by Public Use Facility Fund.
So I remember a couple months ago when we approved. I remember a couple months ago when we approved the money for the HVAC at City Hall. But for the viewing audience, can you remind them why we're putting HVAC down there?
Because the server room heats up a lot and it needs to be cooled, so that was the purpose of the project.
So the servers that run the entire system for the city
That
are
is
still
correct.
at the old City Hall building?
That is
So
correct.
that people know, because otherwise they're saying, why are you air conditioning an empty building?
That is correct.
Yeah.
There's a program to transition out later, but at this time, it needs to be cooled off. Otherwise, we lose all communication to the city facilities.
Exactly.
You're welcome. The Regal Theater HVAC system is also funded by the Public Use Facility, and is to replace 8 new units at the Regal Theater. And the project is ongoing and is also expected to be completed by October of this year.
If we can clarify that the Regal Theater is actually a city property, so it's not a private commercial property. That's why we have a maintenance responsibility for it.
Thank you for that. I was going to ask that we clarify that for the public, that we still have an interest in that building, certainly. Yeah, well, that's a large interest, and we want to make it as nice as we can so that the operator can make a lot of money and maybe end up taking it over someday.
The next project is on One-Stop Permitting Center. The proposed improvements includes renovation of the One-Stop Permit Center at the city building at 201 Northeast Street, 3rd floor. The goal of the project is to integrate all permitting processing at one location, including building and safety, public works, fire, planning, and other departments. Currently, the total budget for the project at this time is $400,000, and staff is working on design procurement at this time. So we're planning to start the design phase shortly, and anticipated completion is fiscal year 24-25 for the project.
As our city manager indicated, you guys are gonna get a more in-depth discussion about the one-stop permit shot, and that it's in regards to the entire process. This is just focused on the CIP specifically.
We get a lot of things that we have to approve, but the 400,000, have we approved that yet?
Yes.
We approved it already for a permitting center?
That's
Yeah, one stop, because I know that this council has not approved a one-stop permitting center yet, or whatever iteration it's gonna take. So I'd be surprised that we set aside $400,000 for a center we haven't approved yet.
This was approved on 6/30/2021.
Mayor,
2021?
excuse me, Mayor, is someone raising their hand out there? I can't really see, or I'm looking at the wrong place. There you go.
Thank you for catching that. I just want to.
Thanks, Sandra. She caught it. I didn't.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want my colleagues to note that the project approval date by council is noted on each slide. So this one-stop permitting center is June 30th of 2021.
I don't think so.
I think you did. I wasn't here, but I was informed by staff to get the project started, but it didn't move. And so when I got here, we went back to the drawing board, made some additions to it, some changes, and there's some additional items that have been added to that. But I was told that you did approve.
That's correct. So if you like, we can send that information.
Yeah, please.
The Jerry Lewis Swim Center Improvement Project is, this was remodeled in 1993, and it's one of our busiest aquatic facility in the city. The scope of the work is to install pool heaters, which is almost done, and then there was an addition of an acid room that's ongoing. So this is expected to be completed in September of this year.
And if I may, just real quick for staff, this is in the second ward.
Shows seventh and it's actually second. It shows it's in the seventh ward, it's actually the second ward. The report shows the seventh ward.
Thank you.
It only serves to divide and.
I agree.
And say, it's really, our interest should be the city, not, you all are not district employees, you are city employees. And so I just think it just serves to divide. We should just be focused on, it's for the better of the city, that's all.
I couldn't agree with you more, and so I think we're maybe suggesting that not even need to be noted necessarily in the future.
Okay. The Pioneer Memorial Cemetery and Succumbe Lake improvement, that's a fence facility, that's a fence installation project. It includes the installation of 7-foot-high wrought iron security fencing and gates along the perimeter of Succumbe Lake Park and Pioneer Memorial Cemetery. The project is almost completed. We've been going through a lot of work. There have been some vandalism damage that is ongoing repairs. So we're expecting this to be completed by October of this year.
And my only comment would be that, again, on the report that anyone's going to see publicly, we don't put up chain link fence as a picture when we're putting up wrought iron.
Agree.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, this says, we got a picture showing chain link fence there, when in fact we're putting up wrought iron, is all. That's all, just so that there's no question. Don't put up anything, just describe it.
Okay, all right, good, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, you're not allowed to.
Next project is Wildwood Park and Encanto Park Phase 1 improvements, baseball and softball field repair. The proposed improvements include repairing and replacing polycap guards, fencing fabric, fencing railing, backstop, bullpen padding and wood, dugout concrete benches, infield and outfield grading, grass sod, grass seed, and related improvements. On this project, we're currently in planning phase, coordinating the design procurement. The project total budget is approximately $990,000, and anticipated completion is fiscal year 25-26.
I have a quick question about the numbers. When we're projecting out to 2026 for construction, is the budget of $1 million, is that enough now? I mean, are we including some inflation or changes in costs
for
down the road?
design.
What's that?
It's just for design.
These are, yeah, but
it's
it
gonna go
says
over that.
complete estimated total project. That's all. I know we don't have crystal balls, but we need to be kind of anticipating any increases. How that's done, that's above my pay grade, I'm afraid, but I would like to at least think about that, because if we're going along thinking this is $1 million project, and 2 years down the road when we get to it, we've got increases by $200,000 or $300,000, I think it's worth considering anyway, in some way, shape, or form. Like a
Absolutely.
plus or minus, something like that.
So Wildwood Park, we have 4 fields in Wildwood and 2 fields on Encanto. So it's basically multi-field location. The scope and the available funding, $990,000. We're going to need to engineer, value engineering, and phase out the improvements. That's why this is phase one. So during the design phase, the consultant will prepare the engineer's estimate to come with basically a value engineered approach, which will be presented to council as part of the design scope, basically.
So what we're looking at is $1 million then for just for this phase, which is the planning and design?
Essentially, that is the goal, yes.
And construction will need additional funds.
In order to address all the 4 fields in Wildwood and the additional fields in Encanto, we will likely need some additional funding.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think it's perhaps a little misleading, not that. I'm trying to be kind. And I know we can't, it should say that the first phase is, and it does say it right here, but it's kind of, when you look at this estated total project, I just think it should show a matrix of like, this is what we think it's gonna be for design, and when we get done with that, I know you don't know the number, it's the chicken or the egg, right? So until you do the planning and design, you don't know what the construction cost is gonna be, correct? But there should be some ability to make some kind of wild guesses at that. So just based on historical and other things that people have done and built in the past. That's all. Does that make sense? Okay.
Or if it's better, at least include what's been used so far, based on the stage that they're in.
Right.
That would be
We
the
don't
other one.
know what phase this is paying for, the 900,000? We were arguing right now whether it was for design or whether it's for construction.
Well, it says phase one,
Where?
at the top of the headline.
Oh, phase one, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That needs to be, I think, just a little more clear on the reports is all. That's all. If we, it can be to be determined even. Phase one, design and planning is $1 million. Construction is to be determined based on the planning. So it just is very crystal clear. Thank you.
Sir, you're right. Anytime we have a 3 or 4 year thing, it's a shot in the dark. And like you said, this is phase one. So as we know, if we have design, we depend on the engineer or the architect to come up with an engineer's estimate. So we give you a true value. In the past 2 years, costs from 2 years ago that we knew were fact. So they gave you phase one. So we start. And then next year, when we know something more, in the future, as we present
So
to
that
you.
someone doesn't read a report and think that this is the whole project.
You're
And if
absolutely
you-
right.
If you look at these categories here, this much here, and this we don't know because it's going to be determined based on the other 2 prior issues.
You're absolutely
you.
right. Thank you. The Roosevelt Bowl Rehab Project, has multiple sources of funding, and you're seeing here 1.2 million. Currently, we have 600,000 from ARPA, 600,000 Measure S, and we're expecting a $1.4 million from HUD, from Congressman Pat Aguilar. So you don't see it here because we haven't gotten the agreement yet from, the feds, and we'll be bringing it to you as soon as the agreement is ready. Then we'll update this to reflect the final budget number. And this project includes a lot of improvements at the facility, seating, lighting, a lot of interior rehab. We have a lot of ADA improvement proposed. As you know, we have some security improvement, some improvement overall to the facility. And currently, we're putting out an RFP to select an architect to work on this, and we're shooting for December of 2024 to complete these improvements.
So the next project is Spiker Park East Side Skate Park improvements. The project involves a rehabilitation of existing skate park at Spiker Park, including concrete surfaces, planting areas, shade structures, and related improvements. The project is currently in design phase. Total funding is approximately $880,000. We are currently in design phase, and anticipated completion is in fiscal year 24-25.
That's if we find the funding source for the construction phase, right? Because the thing is, a lot of these go into design phase. The designs are done, and then they go onto a shelf and say, well, when we have the funding, will carry out the construction of this project.
This project is fully funded, actually.
Fully
It
funded? This
includes
is-
design
this
and
is-
construction.
The 800,000 is for construction as well?
Yes.
Okay.
This is for skate park at Spiker
Oh,
Park.
just a skate park?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry.
Ball field improvements, if you're asking for that, that's a separate project which is coming down the line as well.
Okay, all right.
So for the council's sake, we will stay consistent with the methodology. So if the planning is laid out relative to the funding, if the funding funds the entire project, then we'll show the duration of the project out multiple fiscal years. However, if there's only funding for that specific phase, then we'll just show when that phase will be completed. So the methodology isn't consistent, which is what we'll do going forward. We'll stick to the same methodology for each of those projects.
So what you'll be doing is you'll be saying that this phase is funded, this phase is not funded, and a third phase is certainly not funded.
Yes, so when we
And
present.
maybe even an idea of where that funding may be coming from or where we're
It's
looking.
possible there
if
be
you can.
grant opportunities if they exist or not. So we will be clearer on what the actual funding covers.
Yeah, the 880, is that for everything or is that just for the design or for, yeah?
Yeah, so this case,
Okay.
on this specific slide, it covers everything.
Well, on all of them, all these projects.
No, of course, we'll do that going forward.
Next project is Nicholson Park improvements. The project description involves rehabilitation of existing ball fields, concession building, renovation of restrooms with ADA improvements, parking lot rehabilitation, construction of new walkways and new landscaping at Nicholson Park. The project is fully funded for the park improvements. The total funding is approximately $9.9 million, inclusive of ARPA and CDBG funding for Nicholson Park. We are currently in design phase, finalizing the design, and project anticipated completion is by end of calendar year 2024.
If I may make a quick comment about Nichols. I know Councilmember Calvin's here, and this is in her district, but there was also another, and I know that she's been a very strong advocate of this park, but there was also another very strong advocate of this park, who is Charlie Jacobs, who recently we lost her as well. She was, I mean, her passing is a big loss to our city. I would like it if somehow, if we could have some, like a plaque or a bench or something in her name to dedicate, as she was probably as she spoke on this project, I know she's been one of the biggest advocates for this park as well. I think it would be an honorable thing to do in her memory. If they're, maybe with the Neighborhood Association Council's input, or I'm not sure who it would be, but I think it would be nice to have some memorial, something to memorialize
We
her.
have had in the past, and I don't know if it's been stuck to, and maybe we need to dust it off and review it, but a process for naming something after somebody, or naming a building or a room or a park and what have you. I don't disagree with what you're saying whatsoever, but I think we should know what our policy is on it and what how we go about that. I mean, how names are nominated or whatever. And I think we do have one.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, staff is currently working on taking the existing policy that requires some updates and bringing it back for the mayor and council to consider at a future meeting.
Right, and your points
rename second
for this
part.
particular one here, that,
And I'm
we'll
not saying
definitely take
rename
a
the
look
park,
at it.
but maybe a little
no.
a
Yeah.
bench with a memorial
or
plaque
something.
or something, yeah.
Remember her for her.
Yeah,
I get it. They did that
Yes,
for
boy.
Pat Morris. They did a bench, a wooden bench up in Wildwood Park. And I don't even know how that came about, but I'm sure we went through some sort of a reasonable process, and he didn't just go up there and put it down and put his name on it.
is it still there?
No, it's in my backyard.
Next project is Seacombe Lake Park improvements. The proposed improvements include upgrading the site furnishings, parking lot rehabilitation, new landscaping, lake improvements, ADA upgrades and irrigation improvements at Seacombe Lake Park. Total budget for the project is approximately $10 million. This is a combination of ARPA and San Manuel Band of Mission Indians funding source. The project is currently in design phase, and our anticipated completion is by November 2024 for this project.
falling off the bridge.
Lionel Creek Park improvements. This project includes the construction of a futsal field in the park. We've been working on the design in-house for this project and trying to make it happen with the funding that we have. And I think we're close to doing that. And this time, we're hoping to complete it by May of 2024. This is an ARPA-funded project.
So this one was being done in-house?
Yes.
What, when you guys are, what discretion, when you guys are using discretion on in-house or contracting out? In this case, why was this one done in-house? Any particular?
So this was a decision by the previous administration, so we're just picking up the project from where it was left
No,
off.
I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just.
But typically, I mean, we're not design consultants, so our current administrative process is to contract out the design work. But this was already started in-house, and we've just continued down the path.
This one's taking particularly long, and we were always wondering why this one's taking so long. Okay, thanks.
The next project is Spiker Park ball field improvements. The proposed improvements include the installation of new artificial turf system with drainage at the 5 fields at Spiker Park, including replacement of infill material as well. Improvements include lighting improvements, electrical repairs, and all related improvements. So this project is funded by ARPA. Funding as well as San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. We are currently starting the design phase. It was just awarded at the last council meeting. So we are starting the design phase, and the anticipated completion is February 2025 for this project. The next project is Salsavidra Park field improvements at Guadalupe Field. So the proposed improvements include upgrade the site furnishings, baseball field rehabilitation, ADA upgrades at the restroom facility, and irrigation improvements at Salsavidra Park Guadalupe Field. This project is funded by county ARPA funds. Total funding is approximately $995,000. We are currently in design phase. Design procurement is completed, so we are starting the design phase, and the anticipated completion for the total project is January 2025. The next project on the list is Parks Master Plan Study. So this is a planning study for the overall parks program. Work includes preparation of a parks master plan, assessing existing parks conditions, establishing park service program, developing capital improvement plans, including cost and schedule information. Total budget for the project is $1.1 million. The planning is currently in progress, and anticipated completion for planning is December 2024.
And this 1 million is just for the planning, correct?
So this is developing a planning study, so there is no construction for this one. So it is fully funded to develop the parks master plan. It's a master plan preparation. There is no construction involved.
Just a general comment about the master plan. It will have capital projects recommended as part of the final draft report and recommendation from the master plan. So there will be, future capital projects outlined in the master plan.
Is there any way we can get like an annual update on where the consultants are with the planning of this?
That should be done by next year.
Okay, because this report says December 2024. Thank you, Lily.
Okay, next slide is the Newmark ball field lighting system installation, and basically what this is, an overhaul of the entire lighting system at the ball fields, basically the tee, ball field and 2 softball fields. We're gonna be upgrading all the conduits, the conductor schedules, and then we're gonna be adding also lighting to the parking within the facility. The budget for this one is 1.75 million. We have the estimated total project cost of 1.65 million, and we're expected to complete this project in May of 2024.
Can I make a recommendation for staff on this one? For when it comes to the lighting, if we can look into solar power lighting, that'd be, I think, more affordable than actual fixtures so that connect to the ground or copper wires.
Yeah, first of all, that's really a question. Are we looking into solar lighting? Are we trying to eliminate some of the copper wire and some of the wiring needs that we have to provide lighting in some of these areas?
So where appropriate, we are installing solar lighting, but that's not our general practice. But where appropriate, we are looking at solar lighting.
Is that, you say when appropriate, is this kind of a usage here appropriate? I mean, is there solar lighting that would work in this situation here? We don't know, maybe.
No,
We don't know, or it won't. I'm sorry? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
Yeah, and the question I guess I would raise, I'm fairly new, but have we just taken a look, a comprehensive look at all of the lighting, just to determine where feasible, where it makes sense to install solar? Yeah, I mean, just, yeah.
Can I add a comment on that one?
Sure. Yes.
We have a project, is next on my slide presentation,
Right,
where we install solar lighting on E between Baseline and Highland.
right.
So that's currently is solar lighting
Right,
fed
no,
system.
my question is stepping back
Okay.
to look at all of our lighting, and are we looking to do some assessment to
That-
determine where solar lighting would be appropriate?
That
in
will be
city?
the pilot for the city, what we're gonna be using once we move forward at locations where we have issues in tapping into SCE services. One of the big issues is where we install these lighting systems have to be compatible with SCE, but that will evaluate that on a location by location basis, yes. But going back to the park, because these lighting have to be controlled by what we call a logic box. So it has to be controlled remotely from their offices to turn on and off. So that location is not qualified to be a solar lighting system.
Are those on a timer? When you say controlled from the office, are they on a timer? I happen to know this particular park very
Yeah.
well. And many times there's no one on the field at 10 o'clock at night and the lights are still on.
Yeah.
I don't know how to overcome that or deal with that, or if we're dealing with it. So, and the other thing, while I've got the mic, lighting, a few years back, it seems to me that we had people coming in our front door all the time saying, if you change everything to LED or this and that, and we'll pay for it and it won't cost you anything, all those kind of programs that were available. And I don't know what's out there right now, but there's so much, change in technology with the solar and with LED and whatever, ABC and whatever else is out there right now.
So with these 2 projects, we did go through quite a bit of research of which vendors would be able to provide the most effective lighting at the best cost. When we talk about lights being left on, that's part of our field allocation process, so it's really up to the coaches and the leagues to tell us when they're supposed to be practicing or playing, and then we set the timers according to that and shut them off. So we have to continue to look at what these fields are being used for and who's actually setting in the times appropriately. The other thing is when we look at being able to trying to be effective in saving some funding when it comes to leaving lights on, we have these systems in these logic box that can allow our staff from remote locations to be able to immediately turn it off and on for an emergency if need be.
Can I have that phone number?
No, sir, you may not.
Quick question, has anyone
Mike,
drove,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
has anyone drove to Newmark Park recently, any of the staff? Staff?
Our Parks Director indicated she has.
Because
So-
if you.
Sounds
if
like the answer's no. What's
No.
your
Well, why,
point?
well, if you drove down Newmark Drive, it's like the roughest street in the city. It's horrible.
So you weren't talking about the
lighting.
park, you're talking about the street
Right.
end of the park.
Right, and it's horrible, and that's, if you just drove it, you would know, and this would all be one project instead of 3 different projects, if you just,
So grouping the projects may not always be ideal because of the limited funding. But as it relates to this issue, we'll have our O&M division take a look at that.
okay.
Well, I think too, it's fair to say that if you're trying to make the entrance to the park really nice, you probably need about $10 million.
Well,
So,
I'm not saying, it's just, if you just drove it and you're gonna invest all this money into the park, and we have, and this is a park that we have visitors come regularly because it's a part of the series, then let's look how your first interest, your first appearance of the park, and the first appearance is what you drive into, and that's all.
No, I mean,
that's just
I
one
hear
place
what
in
you're
the city,
saying.
right?
I got-
but that would be appropriate then to have a conversation with the council about adding it to the list. I mean, that's where it would be appropriate.
Well, that's an older neighborhood. It's a very, very narrow street. Cars parked on both sides, and so, and the traffic coming, yeah, it's 39th Street coming in. It's really not Newmark. It's 39th Street is the one that comes in. So anyway, we're taking too much time on that item. Let's move forward.
So this is basically the Spiker Field multipurpose field lighting installation north of the Little League fields. There's an open field. So we're going to be installing new lighting, Musco lighting. And basically, most of these lighting systems are national standards. We're going to be following the installation of and the standards for national ball field lighting system. So new poles, new conduits, and the layout for these for this field will be 2 soccer fields. The budget for this project is about $1 million and some $1,099,000, and then the estimated total project cost is $1,083,000. So we're within budget on this one. The estimated project completion date is May of 2024.
So the next project is the Myers Creek Focused Drainage Study. And this project is a planning study, and it just to kind of focus the Myers Creek watershed, and it will identify any drainage structure deficiencies and capital improvement required and the costs of it. There are quite a bit of development up in that area, the Vermont development. So the budget is $266,771, and we do have a consultant on board for this project, and it will be initiated. We already met with the consultant, and so the project will be moving forward in July, and is estimated to complete June next year.
The Sierra Way storm drain improvement projects incorporate the inclusion of, or the addition of a drainage system and catch basins on Sierra Way between 31st Street and 40th Street, and then connecting it to the county storm drain. This project will be coming out to you for award of a designer to finalize the design, and then we'll put it out to bid and complete construction hopefully in 24-25.
Just a quick question, since it's going through the county storm drain, is the county also looking into helping us fund this project?
No.
No?
The Mount Vernon storm drain, this project includes street and storm drain improvement for Mount Vernon from 16th Street to Cajon Street. We're almost done with design, and then we'll be putting it out for construction hopefully shortly, and we're estimating completion in sometime 23-24.
There's another one that I think, the 6.1 million, is that estimated to be the whole project? So it's not, that's not just the design?
No,
Because we haven't put it out
this
for
is
bid yet,
construction.
so
That is
that's
correct.
the
This is our
includes.
estimate at this time.
So again, not to belabor the point, if we can show the difference between this is, of the 6 million, this is design, this is this, and this is that. Can that
Could.
be broken down kind of that way? Is that possible at all?
Yes, again, that we, we're.
And do we agree that
Yeah.
it's necessary? If
Right,
it's, if I'm
right,
asking for something that's
yeah.
not necessary, please let me know.
So we have
Oh,
all that
absolutely.
information
Sure.
in a massive spreadsheet.
I can imagine.
So we could present all of this.
No,
This is
no,
a
no, no.
summary, high level, to share with you what we
Yeah,
have.
and also if I can explain that, in this one-page setup, we do have a kind of broken down into, the cost for the planning, for design and construction, and also like in the fiscal year that, this year, in the next 5 years, how it's planned out. Yeah, so it's a table matrix, and it's very clear. And also we'll have the funding source, funding amount from each source. Yeah, just because this is a PowerPoint slide that we don't just have limited space to cannot show to that extent level of details. But in general, our projects we try to include, the budget for the entire project, planning, engineering through construction. So if places that we only have funding for design, we do kind of specify that. And then this is also a ongoing, updating process that typically at the outset, is a conceptual cost estimating. And then when we have consultant on board, then they provide a engineering design estimate that will be generally, by the time 100% design should be within plus or minus 10%. And then of course when we bid the project, and then work, the actual low bid price. And then we typically still building a 10% contingency for that. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
The next project is storm drain catch basin screen installation. This is a multi-year project. This is for phase 2. It's essentially installation of connector pipe screen at various existing catch basins to comply with MS4 permit requirements. So the budget for the project is $376,000, and anticipated completion is fiscal year 24-25.
Next project is the construction median on Kendall. So basically what this project is about is to install a median, starting on the north at H and then spanning all the way to the S-curve at the bottom, to the bottom of E, where it meets at that point. The budget for this project is $938,000. When we did the 100% plan and specification and estimate, the project total cost is $1.6 million. So this project is definitely a shortfall. And based on available funding, we'll work with finance in allocating funding from other funding sources. We can move forward with this project once we finalize the funding source.
We know it's a shortfall.
Yes.
Somebody probably with a lot of experience would know approximately what that shortfall is. In other words, are we looking at 2 million more, 3 million more, 10 million more? What's that?
Yeah, so right now, the estimated
Yes.
total project cost is
It's the-
1.6 million, and our budget is about 940,000, so the shortfall is about, 650,000.
Estimated
yeah.
total project is 1.6. So that shortfall is just the difference between?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Initially for
I'm
this one,
sorry.
we have 1 million available, which is good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it now. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. The next project is basically the, yes. The street sweeping signage program, basically what this is encompasses the entire city. Upon management approval, we were planning to do a pilot program within the area that you see on the slide. And basically that area is east of the 215, south of the 210, west of E, and north of Highland. That's why you see there's a surplus of 2 million, and the explanation behind it is in the Burtec contract that we have, Burtec is responsible for the installation of the signs. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it's in the
correct.
contract.
So this is obviously a project that is important to the council. We did convene in a group of stakeholders, which included PD, integrated waste, O&M, engineering, and we discussed how to best apply this project. And we also brought in Vertec, they were part of this discussion. So in that discussion, we agreed that maybe phasing in a pilot approach, which Vertec was in favor of. They felt like for us to see the effectiveness of the street sweeping, because we're gonna have to ramp up. Obviously, if we go citywide, it impacts enforcement. So we wanted to understand the impact of installing these signs. So we selected 2 communities. This is obviously a depiction of what we have here. But Vertec is committed to funding the entire overall program, but they need to know how that's gonna be phased in.
For what period of time? Yeah, that was the same question. For what amount of period of time there?
So right now, the implementation of the pilot program is pretty imminent. We're finalizing the route. They've already finalized the number of locations that are needed. The dots here represent the number of installations that are needed for the signs. So this project could be finished by the end of this calendar year, and then we can get feedback for that. So based on that, we can come back for the council and understand what the stakeholders are saying and what we can further accelerate additional sections in the community.
But you'll be studying it for a year? The feedback will be, is it,
We haven't
6-month period?
Yeah, we haven't
a year?
established the duration of the study, but that's
Of the
definitely
pilot
something.
program?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll definitely lock down a study period.
Street rehabilitation, 21 location. This project include 21 streets. I could read them all if you'd like. It includes segment of Alameda, H Street, Oak Street, Sonora, 36, 6, Guthrie, Oak, 16th, Business Center Drive, 35th Street, Garfield, Tamarisk, 18th, 2nd, 13th, Vanderbilt Way, 43rd, Ohio, Dallas, and 33rd. This project came to you, we put it out to bid and came at $14 million, so we rejected all bids. We are repackaging this project. We have some additional SB1 money that we got from leftover SB money, and there's actually an action item coming to you tonight for some additional SB1 money to be allocated. So we're repackaging this project to ensure that all pavement areas are included in the project, and we're eliminating a lot of the concrete work from this project to ensure that we can complete the project with the funding that we have. So, okay.
Yes, and on this project, I know I mentioned it in one of the meetings. Some of these streets are considered residential in the low-income neighborhoods that would qualify for CDBG funding. And I think I mentioned it to staff to keep it on your radar. 'Cause I think we approved some funding for street repairs under CDBG.
Infill housing. So there has to be.
No,
infill
I know, but it's all, CDBG money can be used for residential streets.
So the package that staff has put together encompasses all 21 streets. The item that's after this, receive an update and the approval of the resolution, then we're gonna get into the SB1. But once we finalize the entire funding allocations, we'll bring back to the council a new package, which we're confident that we'll be able to deliver the 21 streets as specified.
Question, the original shortfall was 14 million, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
The original was 14 million, now you're estimating the project cost at 11 million. And he had mentioned something about, the engineer had mentioned something about cement. Are you guys reducing the scope of work on those individual streets?
So we will obviously address all the ADA ramps that are necessary.
Correct.
But the additional sidewalk work, we're eliminating some of that to focus on the street paving.
Okay, but I think the sidewalks were just being done where there were breaks in the sidewalk, because I know that the streets plans have been, in the past, the practice has been where there's breaks in the sidewalk, you repair those breaks in the sidewalk and you do the street.
So I can have Ziad speak to a little more specific about the specific areas, but the work that was estimated here in the work that was for the sidewalk Segments, some of those segments are still in relatively good shape that don't need to be replaced.
So, okay. Thanks, sir.
I'm sorry. And it says estimated completion time of, September 2024?
That is correct.
Is there a reason why it's taking so long with this iteration of street rehabilitation? Are we doing more than one vendor? Are we just doing one? Are we splitting it up? Why is it taking so long?
It was put out to bid, and then we rejected the
When
bid
was it put
because there
out?
was no money.
I remember that.
Okay.
So it's, that's all the way into the second quarter of next year?
Well,
right?
we're repackaging it right now. Tonight, you're gonna get the request for additional funding to approve that. Once we have this, we're gonna put it out to bid again. So that process is gonna take about 3 months, and then we'll go into construction, and that's gonna take the next 6 months or so.
You may not find it important to expedite, so can we expedite? Can we move a little faster when it comes to these 21 street repairs that should have been done earlier because we rejected the bid? So is there any way that we, the city, can expedite this to help?
So, Councilman
process.
Alexander, I think you're teeing up one of our future slides. The workload is immense for the existing project managers.
Okay.
So we're obviously trying to adhere to very tight schedules as it relates to ARPA, CDBG. There's a future slide that talks about some of our staffing challenges. So TransTech has been with us since February of this year. So over the last 4 months, we've accelerated project delivery. Unfortunately, the volume of work is just immense. And you'll see a slide on it, so I don't want to steal my own thunder. So you'll see a slide to that effect. But right now the volume of work is pretty immense. But we're close on this project, so I feel we could just balance out with the current workload, and we can get this project moving. I think we're very close on this one.
If I may, yeah, absolutely. This project, the 21 streets, it needs to happen. So please, let's work on that. One of the things that I noticed in reading the streets is that Bellevue was missing from this list, but then I noticed that Oak Street is mentioned twice. So I just want to make sure that Bellevue isn't left off as one of the original 21 that were on there.
The project will include all original streets that were in the project description. And sir, we're really pushing hard to make it happen. We're trying to just make sure that, what we're presenting to you makes sense and we can make it happen so that we don't keep going back and forth to you. So we're massaging the project to make sure we're including all ADA issues because we have to, making sure the funding sources are done right. So there's a lot of things that maybe you don't see and we're not presenting it to you tonight, but believe me, we're taking every project as serious as possible so we can push everything forward. And we're doing our best to make you happy.
And that is
and your
certainly
constituents
appreciated.
happy.
Another question that I do have is how much notification do we receive from, let's say, the water department or other utility agencies so that we don't start repaving our streets and they come in after us and just tear it all up to get down into the ground? What type of notification do we receive, or is there any joint effort in making sure that we collaborate our
So
efforts
we-
with other agencies
I'll
as
take that
well?
one, yeah. So there is actually, we just had a meeting with them last week regarding our quarterly coordination meeting, where they show their project listing against our project listing, and they indicate where there's potential conflicts relative to schedule. So those are the ones we negotiate and we try to either accelerate or move back based on the mutual understanding.
So that goes into your timeline also, why it might, okay.
Along those lines as well, is how, do we talk to the county too when half of the street is the county and half the street's the city? Because I've got 2 or 3 of those in my ward. I think they've got some others, but they're, surrounding the county pockets that we have. And half of the street is ours and half the street's the county. And I've seen streets that are brand new on the county side, or sometimes vice versa, but generally not. Brand new on one side, and they're working up there, and we're not collaborating, or we're not working with them to do both sides of the street at the same time.
So we do.
You're aware of that,
Yeah,
right?
of course. We do have a handful of county co-op projects that are going to be presented to you. But right now, with the current staffing and the need to update our pavement management plan, we are somewhat reactive. So we're taking the cue from the county. So the county is approaching us currently for projects. So we're working with them to enter into cooperative agreements. But in the future, we'll try to be a little more proactive where we take the lead and can recommend projects to the county. Currently, the county is recommending these projects to us.
Okay, the main thing I care about, I don't care who takes the lead as long as we're coordinating and that, so that we don't drive up a street and see half of it being paved and the other half not.
Yes.
They need to be done at the same time. We need to figure it out.
So the next staff report that you'll see in the next item, there's 9 joint projects.
Excuse me, I just wanted to announce someone's relying on me for transportation, my family, and I had notified Charles at 7:15. I just wanted to make sure I got through some of the items, and I timed it pretty well. Thank you for this. I'll see you all Friday, but I have some things that I want Councilman Alexander to raise, but if my colleagues would do me the justice of not pulling any of the few Fifth Ward items off this list. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The street rehabilitation relocation projects include 10th Street between F and G, 49th Street between Sepulveda to the end of San Bernardino, and Rialto between Mount Vernon and the bridge. We had a bid opening last week, and actually we got a very good bid, so this will be coming to you for award of contract shortly.
Next project is alley rehabilitation. This is Clean California grant. There is Caltrans Clean California Phase 1 improvements as part of this project. Proposed improvements include rehabilitation of 4th Street Alley, including asphalt rehabilitation, paver, construction, beautification, irrigation, and new plants and trees, and new artwork as part of the project. Total funding from Clean California grant is $723,000, includes design and construction. We are currently in design procurement, and the anticipated completion is next year, mid 2024 on this project.
We are in design.
We are completing the design procurement, so we are getting the designer consultant on board at this time.
We don't have a design, and this has been a year.
Unfortunately, yes, it's been a longer. So unfortunately, the design that was prepared in-house by our previous staff member was inadequate, so we had to restart the process.
So can you assure everyone who's watching that we haven't lost this funding? Because
Right.
there are rumors that the money needed to be encumbered by a certain date
Exactly.
or spent by a certain date, and that we had missed those deadlines. We haven't missed any deadlines, have we?
So the deadline to expand the funds is June 2024, and we are basically working on towards that timeline, getting the designer on board within a month, getting the design basically started.
Construction done?
That's the plan, yes. Yes.
So this is one of the beauty of our on-call engineering services. So we solicited an informal proposal to our on-call designers, and we were able to execute an agreement within the spending authority. So we're moving forward with that item.
So, once again, what is the date that these funds, you said 24th, that funds must be expended?
Yeah, the funds must be expanded by June 2024 because of the Clean California grant involvement on the project. And that includes construction as well.
That includes construction as
Mhm.
well.
This
And-
is why.
Yeah.
This is why and this is a little bit of a side note, but this is why our contract services, like for engineering and for planning, is critical. Because when we lose staff here, they have economies of scale. They have a dozen people who probably work at the firm who do just this very thing and get this done, so that we don't lose grant funding. So
Right.
I know there's been grumblings around in the past, well, why are we contracting out? This is how we get work done, when we have a volume this high of projects to get through.
Yeah, and Mayor Pro Tem, one of the issues, and you're right on point with this, because, you know, the time I've been here last several months, we've had several instances where there've been questions about, well, why are you augmenting staff with contracts? And it's for that very reason, because we do have a fair number of projects that are funded that have deadlines attached to that funding. And I've had several meetings with staff to go through every single project that's funded to make sure that we don't miss deadlines. And so the director knows very clearly that we know what those timelines are, what those grant requirements are, and we have commitments. We will not miss those. Because a number of them have also been provided by our local legislative folks. And I've said, we are not going to go back to those folks and say, we couldn't utilize this money, because we rely on them to keep providing funds for us. And if we can't use that, then that hurts us in terms of future funding for projects.
Okay, the next project is the State Highway 215 at the University Parkway interchange improvement. So we had the presentation from the SBCTA last week. So, so we're all aware of this innovative new diamond diversion interchange design, and this will really help improve the traffic congestion at this old interchange and highly utilized interchange. And this project, the budget is about $2 million, and currently we do expect the total estimated project cost is going to be around $2.962 million, and so there's a shortfall about $950,000. And we do also have a plan that this is a Measure I funded project. We've spoke to SBCTA that we could apply for a loan with the SBCTA, because this is coming from the improvement impact fees, essentially. So essentially, it's like a revolving loan fund that our future in development impact fee will be collected to help fund this Measure I, and then that will help to pay for, that we will get proceeds in the coming years. So this it's like a self-sustaining funding program. Currently it's in design. The construction, the estimated completion date is March in 2025.
The citywide pavement rehabilitation project is a slurry seal project. They include crack sealing and slurry on the various streets. Project is ongoing and almost over, actually. Next couple of months, we'll bring a notice of completion to the city council.
What streets?
There's a whole list of streets, actually, are shown on the map. I don't have a
On
list
this
of them
map?
right now. There's a list of streets.
Right.
So we can provide you with those.
Okay, if you can, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Since we do have a surplus on that one, is it possible to identify other streets that have the life, what is it called, the life expectancy, the year? Remaining service life. Is it, in order to qualify for a slurry, what is the acronym? RLS?
PCI.
Or whatever. Is it 5 through 10, or is it 0 through 5? How do we identify a street that would qualify for a slurry? Because obviously not all streets would have a slurry. That's probably the most
I
minimal.
can answer that if you'd like, Daniel.
Okay.
So typically, and you're going to have a pavement management program coming to you as well, where we evaluate all the streets in the city. So typically, a slurry seal is a 75 and above. Those are the streets that we want to maintain before they would need an overlay, which would cost you 3 or 4 times more. So we try to catch these, crack seal them. These are the ones that have just some cracks, and then we fill them. We seal them with the slurry seal. This way we don't have potholes, alligatoring, and then
Correct.
you require much more expensive work. So these are the kind of streets. And I apologize. You're right. We could have listed all of these streets, but truly this was a summary high level where we're not listing everything, because the assumption is the council is aware of these
It's a very
projects. We're
large-
updating you on their scope. So
And I think I misspoke.
apologize.
I think I
Next
meant,
time we will list them.
and I think I misspoke. I think I said 0 to 5. Really, it's the 15 to 20 that would probably receive the slurry seal, because they have the longest life expectancy of road conditions, I believe. So since there is a surplus, is it possible to still look at other streets that have that 15 to 20 year road life expectancy and give them a slurry seal so that we can add an additional, I don't know how many years a slurry seal adds to a road, but yeah, 5 to 7
5 years,
years.
maybe.
So if there is a surplus, I don't know how much we can do with, what's the surplus, about 300,000 to 400,000? If there is an opportunity, if we can identify any additional streets out there that do fall within that 15 to 20, I say, if we're able, let's, I would encourage that as well.
We'll explore that.
Wait a minute, is that a motion? Can we do that here? So instead of making it optional, make it mandatory? Can we do that, Pro Tem?
The money has already been allocated, budgeted
Right,
for
but he
that.
says he'll look into it. I'd rather give direction.
Well, it's kind of hard to do that.
No, say, hey, you will
Oh, give direction.
now, right, to do it.
Mayor Protem, I believe the appropriate course of action would be for staff to determine if that is the case and bring back an item to consider that, if you want to make a formal change to it. Because this wasn't noticed in the agenda as something that you were going to take action on tonight.
Okay.
And if I can
That,
add,
keyword that we need to have more of around here is trust in one another. And if we ask someone to do something, we've got to trust that they're going to do it, especially when we're talking to staff. So thank you, and I, generally speaking, do.
and if I may make a suggestion, I saw this one has a surplus of the 400,000, and then the next one on the list has it looks like a surplus of 800,000. And I know we were shortfall on the 21 locations, maybe look into those as well. See if we can use some of that funding to those streets.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing, that we're constantly, the projects that we have a shortfall, even like that 21 street projects, we're still looking for money so we can do, as much of the concrete work as we can. So we're constantly scouring through all the capital projects, so looking for surpluses to help, to make up the shortfalls that we have.
Right, and there again, that's something that I particularly assume that staff is doing those kinds of things and trust that they are doing exactly that, so that we're not sitting on 400,000 over here when we could be moving it over here. Now, maybe you need our blessing to do that. And again, you need to bring it to us and say, we got this shortfall over here, and we've got this money over here, we need an approval to move it. So
Yeah,
again,
that's exactly what we have tonight, that's later part of this presentation, that we do have, surpluses from 3 projects that we completed, that we're moving them to 2 projects that we have a shortfall to, address the street lighting important projects.
That's one of the very reasons why we're here to do that.
Okay, so the next project is the City of Highland. So this is a joint project that address exactly, that we want to have the streets that's completely paved, especially with the joint boundary with other cities. So this is a project that we, with City of Highland, that's in Pacific Avenue between the Victoria and Church Avenue, and is to improve the pavement, sidewalk, curb ramps, and bike lane. And the project budget is about $2 million, and then our estimate at this point is $1.27 million. So, so things are within budget, but we don't want to, we're still getting into construction. If we have surplus from this project, we certainly will apply it to other projects. The estimated completion is March 2024.
Highland is the lead agency. What kind of money are they putting in? Is it equal amounts? Are we splitting it down the middle?
Yeah.
In terms of the
usually-
costs?
Right, usually it's determined by the amount of work required, within each jurisdictions. So that's how it's assessed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, on that one, it might be nice to show the amount that Highland's kicking in or what they're doing, because I think based on what you just said, if they have a little bit more work to be done on this project, is it fair to assume that they would be putting in maybe not only a little bit more labor and effort from their staff, but more money as well?
Right.
So that might be nice to be able to see that, how much they're contributing. So the next time I run into Penny, I can tell her, hey, thanks for the $4 million.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
The next project is 210 Victoria Interchange. Basically, what this project is about is we're in the planning stages, as Daniel indicated early, why things take so long time in this stage. At this point, we are only developing the project approval and environmental determination for this project. And we are not contributing any money for this project approval and environmental determination. It's the tribe and the City of Highland is paying the tab on this one. I'm just helping them reviewing the oversight and the impacts within the city. We're reviewing the alternative ramp design at this location. They provided to us multiple alternatives. We're happy to share them with you at a later stage to see how these ramps will incorporate within the city boundaries. But this is basically the project as an overall. And this is to alleviate the congestion currently we have at the eastbound 210 off-ramp at Highland. So if this goes through, that interchange will balance the traffic coming into the city. And then also this project is very helpful in providing access to the San Bernardino International Airport. Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you. The Pepper Avenue Rehab Project is a joint project with the City of Rialto. It includes some asphalt rehab, concrete improvement from baseline to mill. The project is ongoing and expected to be completed by January 2024. The Sierra Way project from 9th Street to 30th, if you've driven on it lately, you'll see that it has been paved. Project is almost completed. We're in the final punch list, so we should be bringing it to you shortly with a notice of completion.
Well done on that project.
Thank you.
So the next will be the first one of the 9 projects that we have with the San Bernardino County joint projects. So this map shows that, all the areas that will be part of this project, but again, that what we are, our involvement, it really will be kind of just where the boundary between the county unincorporated area and the city. So what's shaded in blue is the city of San Bernardino territory jurisdiction. And what's in the light yellow background, beige, almost like a beige background, is the unincorporated county area. So the legend shows that the different kinds of work proposed, so it's all surface seal treatment, so, different types, slurry seal 2, that's in, light blue color, so, all the different color codes shows a different type of roadway treatment. But here, again, we're only contributing to, our city's portion of the work that's done, basically at the boundary of the county and city limits. So for this project, the total estimated project cost is $1.86 million, and the budget is $1.37 million. So you can see that there's already a shortfall. And later on, part of this this agenda or this item is that we are proposing to use the SB1 fund to help pay for the shortfall. And this is the only one of the 9 projects that has, this amount of funding budget, and all the other 8 projects don't have any budget. And again, we're proposing to use the SB1 fund to pay for, and gas tax fund to pay for the total cost. So the next project. So this is in the citrus area. So again, the map shows the, the areas that's between the city and the county. And this, on the southwest corner is the city of Highland. So anyway, you can see that again, we're only, talking about the areas that's, in the boundary of the city and the county area. So for this project, the total project cost is $686,000. Again, there's no budget for it. So currently the project is 100% design, and the construction is estimated to be completing in 2024. The exact month is June 2025. That's what's scheduled to be completed. So the next one is in the Blake Street and other roads. So similarly, it's a resurface roads and ADA curb ramp update. And the budget, total project cost estimate is about $47,000. And the project status is about at 35% design, and the construction completion is in June 2025. The next one is in the 3rd Street and other roadway areas. So again, it's a resurface the roads and ADA curb ramps, and the total estimated project cost is 1.6 million. And the current status is 95% design, and the construction completion is in June of 2025. This is in the North San Bernardino area, the curb ramps. So the total project cost is $37,500, and the design right now is in a planning phase, and the estimated project completion is June 2025. The next one is Arden Avenue. So again, similarly, this pavement reconstruction, mill and overlay, and the ADA compliance. So the total project cost is 2.396 million, and the design status is 65% design, and project completion is estimated to be June 2025.
The next project is the 210 Waterman Avenue improvements. And basically what this project is about is adding capacity to the segment between the eastbound off-ramp to 30th to provide access to the Lake Arrowhead, the community on the north side of 30th, and Big Bear. So the budget for this one is $400,000. The estimated total project cost is $1.398 million, but we're working with finance. There's close to $998,000 that needs to be appropriated part of this one. So after this presentation or next week, we will not have a shortfall on this project anymore. This project is moving quickly because we are doing the final 100 plans reviews on this one, and we're going to go through an encroachment permit process with Caltrans. They're on board with this project, so we're ready to hit the ground, I would say, by the 3rd quarter of this year. So this is a fast-moving project, and you will see results immediately.
Quick question on that one, because this is officially, technically, it's a state highway. Is there an amount, financial burden that falls on Caltrans, or they pick up a cost of this, or how does that work?
Yeah, this is, you know what, because the agreement you probably recall a couple years ago, the previous administration took this project through the approval process, and at this time, I did not see in the staff report there is a financial contribution by Caltrans. It's basically the city and then SBCTA. SBCTA is the lead project manager on this one.
And,
yeah.
And along those lines, you use the word technically a state highway. It seems to me that from the freeway north, it's in the city.
Right.
And we're responsible for it until it gets like past 40th Street, and that's when it becomes really a state highway.
Yeah.
And that is an ideal, talking about an entry to our community and beautifying that area up there from 30th, where a lot of people from out of town get off on 30th and go to the mountains. So, you know, and that could really be a great project to work on to really let the public know that we're serious about beautifying this community, because that's nothing but mountain traffic almost. And so it's critical that we try to find funds for that, to maybe rehab that whole, both sides of the street, not just the streets, but the walls going behind all those houses and the whole thing. Very important to, just like it would be coming off of the freeway into downtown on 2nd Street or 5th Street or any of these streets that people are coming from out of town into our community. We need to be working diligently towards beautifying those and making a statement. And I know we can do anything with money, so go find it.
Speaking of the devil, you said you found $1 million where'd that $1 million come from? And this is not for the consultant, this is for staff. Who here knows where that $1 million came from? Nobody knows?
The 998, the one I talked about, yeah, it was in the staff report. Upon review of the staff report, I brought it to the finance. We're working with finance in appropriating that money. So it's already in the staff report.
Explain.
This is actually part of the Measure I
Yeah.
funding source.
Oh, it's Measure I funding?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
See,
so
there you go.
we
That's what I
do
was
get,
asking.
yeah,
Where did that money-
annual.
Already, yeah.
Yeah, revenue from Measure I.
Yeah, what bucket did it
Measure
come
I,
in?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And look, I thought SBCTA gave a presentation on Wednesday. On Wednesday, last Wednesday,
yes.
about this, and they mentioned this as one of their projects. They're not contributing any financial help to this?
There is a cost sharing with this, with SBCT on this project here.
Oh, so this is just our
Yeah.
portion?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next project is payment management program. So this is a planning level, planning document, basically preparing the payment management system for the city. It's a systematic approach to identify the entire city payment network and basically conduct field surveys to identify the existing, what we call payment condition index, which is essentially a rating from 0 to 100, 100 being perfect street and 0 being failed street. So the consultant will basically assess and conduct field surveys for every street in the city network and identify these ratings for each network, each street segment within the network, and then subsequently prepare a payment management program, which essentially creates a framework for the next 5 to 7 years payment management program and identifies funding level scenarios, different scenarios based on funding levels, and will be a framework that the engineering staff will be using for the next years to come to identify the proposed payment management projects for the next years to come. So the total funding for the project is $1 million. We are basically working on the planning procurement, and the anticipated completion is in fiscal year 24-25.
That's when you plan to have the plan.
Yeah, this is a planning document. So there is, based on this planning document, once this is prepared, we're going to be using this planning document for the next years to come
Right.
to establish the scope basically for the next payment management projects,
And you
payment
said-
rehabilitation projects.
You said every city, I mean, every street in the city. And I assume that means literally every street. I mean, whether it's a little crummy side street that no one seems to go on, but I mean, it's everything,
Yeah,
correct? I mean,
every public street within the city network will be basically included
and
in
it'll
this.
be a master
study.
map with, the master plan.
Yeah, it is there will be a master map, and there will be what we call scenarios basically. Depending on the funding level, the consultant will prepare different scenarios based on the available funding or future funding levels, and that will be part of this study.
I can't applaud this enough because forever and ever, it was the council member who yelled at the city manager the loudest, who got their street repaved. And now we're transitioning to a data-driven approach, because I mean there were some streets that were getting repaved every 5 years, and then others it was a gravel road, and it was that council member yelled pretty good at the city manager, so that street's got to get repaved every couple of years, and that's got to change, and this is the first big step to doing that. Yeah.
And I strongly support that as well, where it needs to be data-driven, not who screams the loudest. It's based on which street really, needs it, based on data that was collected, and that's how we allocate the resources. But it's also my memory could be a little off on this, but I do remember about 4 or 5 years ago, we did approve a study, or there was some group or somebody that drove all the streets in the city and measured
With
the.
GPS or something.
Yeah, it was like 5 years ago, and we had a list of every single street in this city, and again, they were rated from 0 to 20. Is that what this is going to do again? Or is this something different?
It's different, but it's for the same function. However, this is going to be the more state-of-the-art that what's, most of the other cities are using. We're going to propose using a software system for this inventory. So whereas before, it's based on the pavement conditions index, that type of system. So we're kind of improving, this whole evaluation and condition assessment, and then put it into a software system, to keep track of things. So it is like typically every 5 years, that cities does an inventory update. So this is part of that we're getting ready to do, and this is it's also something that we will be discussing, this coming Friday at the MCC workshop, what we plan to do with all of our master plans. So, yeah.
So a quick answer is the system we have is very antiquated, so this will modernize us.
And at one point, there was discussion, we had a little subcommittee, I can't remember exactly what it was, the ESRI, Esri was gonna be involved, a school, was going to be involved with, really volunteers are going to do it as a project. And of course, volunteers are great, but sometimes you don't get the full job done. But this was to do, while they're out there checking the streets, they were going to also note stop signs, and if a tree is covering a stop sign or a bush is covering a stop sign, all kinds of things at intersections and areas on sidewalks and things, because they're out there anyway, and they were going to actually identify light poles. I think there were about 3 categories: light poles, like maybe stop signs, sidewalk problems, and then streets. And so I don't know if that's too much to ask, but since everyone's out there at that time anyway, if they just look up instead of just looking at the street, they might see a stop sign that's a problem or a tree that's blocked that needs to be trimmed. And those are all things that, we need to be looking at. It's a monumental task, no doubt, but we need to be doing it.
Funding source?
Funding.
The SBC TA last week. So as you're aware that, the project is in progress, and the design, it's currently in design. The construction is estimated, is in planning actually. And the budget, we have about $3.6 million in the budget, and the total project cost at this point is 3.8, but we also have gotten some discussion or information from SBCTA that they do anticipate some, fair amount of budget shortfall. So we will be getting more information from them, and then we'll be bringing that back to the City Council for discussion. Again, this project is within the Measure I, so there may be some ways that we can help, to manage the shortfall issue. Yeah. So, okay. Next.
The next project is State Street Extension, Phase 1 improvements. State Street between 16th Street to Baseline Road. That's the first phase. Phase 1 improvements include construction of new asphalt roadway, including curb, gutter, median improvements, curb ramps, concrete raised medians, traffic signal improvements, and striping. The project is currently in construction, and anticipated completion is by end of this calendar year. The total funding for the budget for the project is $8.5 million approximately. So we are anticipating to complete this project this year. The next project is Cross Street Bridge emergency improvements rehabilitation. So This is the existing bridge on Cross Street, west of Fairfax Drive. So the work includes replacement of existing bridge deck on Cross Street, west of Fairfax Drive, as emergency repairs. So there is currently no budget for this project. Essentially, it's one of the recommendations for tonight. And the staff's original estimate for this work is approximately $1 million at this time. Staff is working with different jurisdictions, including San Bernardino County Flood Control District, as well as other regulatory agencies, including utility companies as well, for the necessary relocations of utilities and other improvements, as well as the school district as well, because of the existing temporary payment through the school property. So there is various coordination items for a project at this scale, a lot of moving parts, but basically the current estimate is $1 million, and anticipated completion for this project is mid-2024.
Has the RFP gone out for this already?
Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Has an RFP gone out for rebuilding the, well, we're in design right now.
Yeah, so we haven't
Yeah, you're
released the
right.
construction documents yet.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
So it's important to note that we're actively communicating with county residents, the school district, the utility companies. This is an evolving project. Obviously, when we started the project, you know, some certain assumptions were made, but as the design has been progressing, initially it was just gonna be a retrofit. But now we believe that we can rebuild it so that we don't have to deal with this again. So it's basically a new design. So that's what's pushed back the project. But we're constantly communicating with affected stakeholders. So we're actively engaging them so that they're aware of the project status.
There's no insurance claim on this or anything? Because I know we had a bridge once collapse at a park, and that got paid, like, we got paid to fix that. There was no.
You know, we haven't really explored that with the risk management. We've been so focused on the project delivery, but that's something we can discuss with.
Yeah, we got $800,000 for the Meadowbrook Bridge, Meadowbrook. When it got burned down, we got $800,000 to rebuild it.
Well, there's definitely signs of vandalism, so we can look at it.
Oh.
Something worth exploring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, before I get on to this next county joint project, the question about the pavement management program, $1 million is actually from Measure I. So, okay, so the next one, this is one of the 9 joint projects we have with the county. So this is we kind of talked about the past 6 projects that we actually had a co-op agreement with the county for it. And this project, the 4th Avenue and Mountain Drive, we don't have a co-op agreement with the county yet, and is part of the agenda today that to recommend, you know, entering into agreement with the county for this project. So again, this is, you know, project description is the culvert construction, roadway reconstruction, pavement reconstruction, and curb improvement. The total project estimated cost is $756,000, and again, we don't have a budget for it. And similarly, that we're proposing to use the SB1 fund and gas tax to pay for this project. And currently, the project is about 65% design completion, and the estimated project completion date is September 2025. So the next one is another joint project, and it's at 5th Street and Pelly Road. Again, this one, we don't have a co-op agreement with the county, so again, it's on the agenda to enter into an agreement with the county for all the improvement. This includes the Hawk system installation, ADA ramp, upgrade construction, and the installation of high-intensity activated crosswalk beacon for a school crosswalk, including intersection street civil improvements. So the project total estimated cost is $355,000, and there's no budget for it. Again, so it's the SB1 funding and gas tax funding. The estimated project right now is 95% design completion, and the estimated project completion date is October 2023. The next project is the last project with the county is at 40th Street and other roads. So the project description includes mill and overlay and 88 ramp upgrades, roadway resurfacing of the 40th Street and other roads. Still, the total project estimated cost is 1.14 million. Similarly, the cost will be, paid for with the SB1 fund and the gas tax. So this project actually is on a very progressive schedule. It's already been awarded, and we already have a signed co-op agreement with the county for this project. The project completion date is estimated to be June 2024. Okay.
Basically, what this is a reminiscence of an old PO that we have. So this is access budget we have of 54,000. Currently, we have a contract with UNEX for replacing the street light knockdowns, and we can move that money into that account. We'll work with finance, but that's what this basically is all about.
Does someone know, did they get that light that's on Valencia and Orchard, that one that's at an angle that needs to be knocked down and picked up because it's a hazard? Does anybody know? Has that been taken care of? I'll find out tonight when I drive by there.
Yeah, that's fine. Send me an email and I can send it to O&M Council. And
Thank
then,
you, sir.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
No problem. This is the project that I discussed earlier, that I don't think the Inland Empire, they have a system like we have here on E between Baseline and Highland. This is, as you can see, what we did at this location is basically retrofitted the existing lighting system that we have with solar, because if we went ahead and replaced the existing conduits, took them out, pulled new cable, the project will be costing up to $1 million. So what we did, let's look at an innovative way of completing this project by installing the solar system. And we try to fit these fixtures within the same aesthetic that the old fixtures were. And then also at locations where we have the Cobra heads, we installed those also. You can see the picture on the left. And we're within budget on this project. And we're planning, this project will be completed in August of 2023. We're almost done with it. This is the Genevieve Circuit lighting project, and basically, as you know, the area encompasses the on Marshall, 34th, Mountain View, and Sierra Way. This neighborhood has been dark for a long time, and due to the high voltage, what's happening at this location is we have a high voltage circuit, and every time we go and repair it, then it burns the existing wires and the cabling. So we worked diligently with SCE in modifying the power feed to this neighborhood, and the plans were signed, and we're ready to hit the ground once we approve. There's an item on tonight's agenda to appropriate the money into the budget, so it will not be a shortfall. It's in your packet. The same thing with this one. This is the same type of project where the area has been dark for a long period of time. So we take it as this is a safety project that needs to be moved forward. Again, even though we show a shortfall on this project, that is not, because once we appropriate the money and you get the approval based on the resolution in your packet, the plans for this location is also ready. Once the appropriation is completed, finance complete their paperwork, then we can advertise as soon as possible.
And just real quick, again, explain exactly why they're dark. Is it the circuits are just antiquated, or what's the issue? They're just overloaded, or?
Yeah, overloaded, the circuit's antiquated, like we indicated
And
earlier.
they just shut off?
Yeah,
or-
they shut off.
And then that's the
Yeah,
reason? Okay.
that's the
that
reason,
makes-
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, there's a lot of other places that are dark too, but this is specific to the circuit, and that's why.
It's
they're-
specifically to the circuit, yeah.
Have we identified any other locations that have these same issues? Do we have a number, or?
I would probably have to get in touch with the O&M and get the count from them and identify these locations.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
We talked early on about the city lighting upgrades. It's in the works. So basically, we completed phase 1, and the budget was allocated for this project close to $1 million. And then we replaced close to 1,350 LED incandescent lighting to the new LED system. That project was completed. Currently, we're in construction for phase 2, and that will encompasses the entire amount. So the entire budget will be for this project is the 901,000. So we're gonna have a surplus on this project, and that will take care of, I would say, almost 90% of the LED lighting in the city. We still have some left. So what we did is we applied for an energy efficient grant for 250, and because it's set aside for each city in the United States. So hopefully we can get that. We were working with the grant division and applying for that grant. And with that, we'll probably be completing almost to 96, 97% of the LED conversions in the city.
Just real quick, when you say LED, you also mean solar power then, right?
No, just taking the old incandescent light that you have, like the old one, the bulb, the fixtures. Yeah, and then we're changing them to the LED, which is the bright.
Are those like the ones that we had on E Street by any chance?
There is
Are you
some new
replacing?
development. Actually, what we do is we condition all the new development to do the conversion into LEDs.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
remember at one point, the E Street lights that you already covered, where they were being bid for 750,000, replace those lights. And once we went to the LED solar powered, that price went down drastically, as we saw earlier. So, I mean, that should be something that our staff should be looking into, if possible.
Yeah.
We're big proponents on solar power, sorry.
Okay. And by the way, by the time we complete the conversion of the entire LED, it's an annual saving of $3 million on that energy saving. We're not going to be paying for that, the SCE.
And the upgrades are just limited to those that I'm assuming we've identified that it's simply because the bulb has been burnt out, not because the copper wiring has been stripped out.
Right.
Or just replace, or we know for
Replacing
sure.
just the
light
fixture
bulb.
itself, just the bulb itself, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. This project is basically an upgrade of various traffic signal hardware at 224 signalized intersections. If you recall, years back, we went through what we call an SSARP analysis of safety in the city, which is the Systematic Safety Approval Plan. And this is a federally funded project. So we have an initial budget. Basically, what this project is that I'm sure you've seen them, where we updating the current signal heads from 8-inch to 12-inch. You've probably seen the yellow tape around the heads, the pedestrian push buttons, the countdown vehicle indication, the countdown pedestrian indications, and so forth. So we're almost done with this project. The budget we have is shown in the grant fund is $6.4 million. The estimated total project cost is about $4 million. So we'll end up again within budget, but we'll end up with additional surplus we can use in the grant for future projects. And
Would
then-
that future project have to be related to you said this is federally funded?
Right.
So that's the federal, that 6 million is federal money, 6.4 million is federal money?
That one.
And in other words, I guess what I'm asking is, are there strings attached to the surplus, to the 2.5 million?
The way it shows in the financial system, that question for finance, I'm not sure if. It shows in the finance system is 6.436, but the actual estimated project cost is $4 million. So anything above that, in order to use it, we have to go and get approval from Caltrans.
So it looks
Yeah.
like there's approximately $2.4
Yes,
million.
yes.
It's going to be excess.
Access
And we-
in the
and-
grant amount, in
and
the
the-
grant fund amount.
And
yes.
we will have to get approval to spend that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, because as you can see, this one actually is 100% reimbursable. So what I do is when I get the invoicing, I prepare the invoice, send it to Caltrans, and they reimburse us for the full amount. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm almost, I'm a little confused. You're gonna have to explain something to me.
Yeah.
I know that in the past, we've had, where we've done an overhaul on the traffic lights at an intersection, and they've ranged anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 to replace all the hardware. And so these are, some of these sites that are shown here on the map, some of them are just small fixes, and others are a complete overhaul of the hardware? Because there's no way that the 6 million is covering all the intersections indicated here in the map.
It covers the 4 million.
Yeah,
4
so
million,
four,
right, yeah.
so that makes
So-
so,
Basically, what we did is with the initial assessment that was performed on the initial, the systematic improvement report that we assessed the entire city on how we reduced the number of collisions. We assessed which signal heads needs to be changed. So if you're driving at a location where you have an 8-inch signal head, when you change it to 12-inch signal head, meaning the circle of it, is going to be more visible to you. You're going to be able to see it. So we did initial assessment. So not every intersection is going to be, because this is only 224 locations only. We have currently 304 signalized locations throughout the city. So we're going to be changing it at the most important locations were identified in the grant application.
I know that part, but so how many, in what's budgeted, the costs right now are at 4 million. How many signalized intersections have you guys upgraded?
With the completion of this project,
Yeah.
it'll be 224.
And you guys were able to do all of that with the 4 million or the
Yes.
6 million?
So
Yes.
this,
Then it can't, there's no way that you guys are doing the entire upgrade, because we've now, on several occasions, we have approved, an overhaul of all the hardware at an intersection. And again, it ranges anywhere between 600,000 to 800,000. I know, because people complain that, how can it be so expensive, but it is. So now tell us, how are you doing 224
So this
signalized
is
intersections?
for a
You're
hardware
right.
component. This isn't the traffic controllers. Typically, the traffic controllers are the expensive, big dollar ticket items. This is, it's listed here, it's signal heads, push buttons, pedestrian countdown heads. It's not the
There
full-
you go. You just explained
Got
it.
it.
I thought it was the entire hardware. No. It's just some of the components within that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just the components,
Okay,
yeah. The
that's-
next project,
Okay.
we'll talk about
Oh,
exactly.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
The door,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not the door.
yeah.
It's just the doorknob.
Okay, another one. So what basically this project is, this is a challenging project because we're going to be upgrading the signal poles at 49 locations to install what we call a dilemma zone detection system. So meaning,
What it means is it delays the other light from turning green if it
You got
detects
it.
a car coming into
yeah.
the intersection.
You got it.
Okay, there you
yeah.
go.
Except this one, so what we'll do is if you're approaching an intersection on yellow, what do you think? Shall I proceed? Shall I stop? What shall I do, right? So I'm sure you see every day we come to work, we see that, right? So that's what this. So what this is a system we're going to be installing in the city is where you, if you enter that zone, the camera will detect you and will put a call to the traffic signal controller to delay the conflicting movement green. Yeah, so that's what this project is about.
I presume that you place these cameras on high accident areas, correct?
Yes, according to the initial report we did years back, and remember I mentioned the SSARP report, they identified these locations as high collision locations. We need to address the collision at these intersections along 3 corridors, which is Mount Vernon, Baseline, and Highland.
Wonderful, thank you. That's a nice safety item, very nice.
Does it also connect to the crosswalk signal, I'm assuming, or is it just the car traffic light?
Just the
preventing
car traffic, just the car traffic,
Is
yeah.
there, because I would prioritize the safety of the pedestrian to be included in that as well. I'm sure there's got to be technology for an advanced dilemma zone detection to prevent, I can't imagine where the pedestrian cross would turn green, and then the other one,
Yeah, I
It's-
think
I
it
can't.
will be all interconnected.
oh, so it's all interconnected somehow, okay.
Yeah, what you, there is a function in the unit itself. It's called leading pedestrian indicator. So what we'll do is these locations, once we program the units, so let's say if you're crossing the intersection, we can start the green before the vehicles can turn, so 5 seconds. We call it LPI, leading pedestrian indicator. We can program it in the units, in the traffic signal.
And then I would, of course, encourage Mr. City Manager, our police department to start enforcing some of the, doing some traffic enforcement. So if people are running red lights, let's start enforcing that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
That has to do with more staffing on motorcycles, right?
Staffing and some other, just more diligence.
What this is basically an annual budget that we get. We upgrade the communication that we have back to our traffic management center. So this is an ongoing budget that we obtain on an annual basis. On the average, we spend between 37 to 40,000 on this upgrade. So this is an ongoing annual program. Ninth and Medical, this is basically an intersection that was listed, one of the locations that we need to upgrade the infrastructure, meaning that the conduits, the wires, the signal keeps going on flash. So we're almost done with this project, it's within budget. The budget was 428. Total project cost is the same thing. We try to minimize the change orders as much as possible on these signal projects, even though sometimes it's tough to work with the contractors. The same at this location. If you recall this location at the Rosa and Date, which is south of the 210 freeway. Again, the project is almost completed, and then we are within budget on this project. Mount Vernon and Rialto, basically this is a design of the same as the Ninth and Medical, the Rosa and Date, but we're doing the design. We have an available budget of 60. We're estimated to do total project cost for design is 20,000. We're almost done with the design. We'll be done with the design by the end of this year. So this is, once we finish the design, then we have to find surplus funding so we can proceed to construction.
So this is where we're showing that it's only for, the schedule is only design, because the budget we have is only for design, so we're not showing the construction, in the timeline.
Okay, same scenario here, Mount Vernon and Walnut. Budget is 35,000, estimated total project cost design 20. We'll be finishing the plans by the end of this year. Rancho and Rialto, same thing. We're in design, completion also by the end of this year. And you can see the budget 25, where estimated total project cost is 20. And Waterman 21st, that's the same scenario is budget 25, estimated cost 20. We'll be able to finish design by the end of this year. And that will end my presentation. Thank you.
So that completes the specific project updates. We are now going to get into the closeout project, which Susan will provide the detail.
Right. So we're not getting into the individual projects, but we do have a table showing that, all the projects we have completed or in closeout process. So it's a total about 34 projects, and we, for ease of visualizing this, it's 2 rows, and then the first column shows the project category, and then we even have it shaded in blue for the building projects, and then in red for the parks projects, and purple for the street projects. So you can see that there are 3 projects completed for the building projects, and parks there are a total of 6 projects, and streets that there are more, in the next slide. So quite a few street projects, as you can see. And then the last row column is the traffic controls projects. And they are like a total about 6 traffic control projects. Is there any questions about these projects? Okay, all right, so the next slide shows the projects that have not been activated yet. So again, it's kind of good to kind of keep in mind that this is really a 5-year capital improvement program. So currently we have about, 70 or so projects that are in active planning, design, or construction phases. And then so 25% of the projects we have completed, and the other 25% of the project is still not activated yet, but then it will be activated as soon as we have projects completed, and we have more manpower that can start working on the new projects. So that's kind of keeping things in motion. And so again, this shows the not activated projects, and so we have a list of building projects, about like 8 of them on this list, and then the continue with that. There will be the other, the shaded in red again are the parks projects. And then the next the slide shows that 3 more parks projects, and then we do have quite a few storm drain projects, and then about 5 street projects that's in the works, and also half a dozen or so traffic control projects, as well as 3 other category projects.
So question then, the not activated projects, and they're just missing funding, correct?
Yes, some of them we don't have the funding. So as I mentioned, that we have about 14 projects that currently we don't have the funding for those. And this will be, we're constantly looking for funding that we can help fund these projects. As we kind of go through projects completed that have surplus, then we look for, where it can be appropriately help fund the new projects. So again, funding that there are different funding allocations. So some we have to see that where, for example, storm drain projects are typically funded by the storm drain fund, or these the Measure I projects are funded by the Measure I fund. So we have to see, how we can appropriately apply the different sources of funding.
And Councilmember Barr, some of those projects haven't been assigned to staff as well. So that's a
They haven't
combination.
been?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I remember, for example, I'm looking at the Waterman Baseline Culvert. I know we approved it back in, I think, 2019. And, that's just one of the many projects that I see here that we've approved, and they're not getting done. So maybe by the 30th, if staff can provide status updates of where they are, if they're under the design or the construction aspect, so we know what money to allocate to those, that'd be great.
So those projects on the non-activated list, we're definitely looking as these projects start closing out to start loading our current project managers with moving those from non-activated into activated. So if we haven't moved them into the activated, it'd be hard to tell you potential schedules, potential impact. But as we move projects forward, we would definitely be able to have a better understanding of that project.
Okay, yeah, because I remember, like I said, we've approved some funding for some of these projects in the past, and it'd be nice to see where they are currently. That would help us tremendously, and staff too. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So the next 2 slides, I'll present on this slide, and then on the next slide are projects that have identified shortfalls that need to be addressed in order for the projects to continue. In the slides, we provided expected shortfalls, but those projects are either rough estimates or not ready for the city council to take action on these projects. So the item on the next 2 slides are projects that need to take action so that we can move into the next phase of those projects. The first one being the Cross Street Bridge. As indicated by OCON, this project is estimated at $1 million. We're progressing through the design. Right now, the estimate still stands at $1 million. So the funding source that we're requesting from here is the Capital Contingency Reserve Fund, which definitely has a fund balance. The second item, although it's listed here, staff intends to return to the City Council on 7/19 to amend a cooperative agreement with SBCTA for us to move the University Parkway and I-215 improvements. So this will allow SBCTA to bid this project so that they can move into the construction phase. the way this table is broken out is the two projects on top, the Genevieve Circuit Lighting and the Ralston Circuit Lighting. Those are the two projects that need a funding allocation. So you can see the shortfall in the fourth column, which is labeled budget shortfall. One is approximately 1 million, and the other one is approximately 1,250,000. So the grand total of what's needed in that shortfall is 2,283,552. The column to the right are projects that have surplus of 325,000 in the Congress Street from Mount Vernon Avenue to K Street, the Arden Street City Pavement Rehabilitation, and the street sweeping site. And so there's a total of $4 million in budget surplus. These are all within Measure S, so the surplus is more than sufficient to cover the funding shortfall. So if approved tonight, we'll have a recommendation slide that recaps it. The resolution includes the language to include to approve these funding shortfalls. I will say that we've been actively working with our stakeholders. We meet with finance once a month. So once a month, we are either talking about the actual overall budget, or the off month, we're talking about the CIP budget. So we're actively engaged with finance, we're actively engaged with our other stakeholders, so that way, as projects come up or issues come up, we're constantly talking about it. So I think there's a renewed emphasis in the budget. So as these projects are closing out, and we identify other future shortfalls, we feel that movement within our current capital projects may be able to fund those projects as we move forward.
Where does the difference between 4 million and 2.3 million, which is about 1.7 million, where does that money go?
So if we can, if there are other projects that need within the already.
It's gotta be parked somewhere, doesn't it? I mean, the excess, or where does it?
So there's
go?
two options. One, we can just return to fund balance, or if we identify as some of these projects start advancing, if it's in a Measure S project, we can move within funds since these are approved projects already.
Thank you.
So as I was mentioned to Councilmember Alexander, the workload for the department is pretty immense. You know, we have 130 approved projects for, I know the mayor's image right there is covering it, but it's $170 million. And we also have 14 unfunded projects. So over the last 6 months, we've really, I feel like, taken great strides to have a better grip of our CIP program. So when we first started, we were balancing a pretty heavy load with a lot of odd-shaped requests. So we were getting peppered with a bunch of different things. We were dealing with staff transitions. People have come and gone. We've integrated a new augmented program. So it was very challenging. The road ahead was very, very difficult. So this image in the middle, what I feel still shows the heavy workload, but it's a lot more balanced. And we are now on solid ground. I know it's being covered by the ribbon right there, but we are on solid ground right now. We definitely feel that the work that has been done in the last 6 months is preparing us for this 5-year CIP. There's still a lot of work to be done. Obviously, the feedback that we received tonight, there's still some things that we can streamline, and I'll be the first one to admit there's room for us to grow. But the work that staff has done, both our augmented staff and our internal staff, it should be applauded. They've done an amazing job of getting us to where we are. So this is where I feel where we're headed. Even though the workload is still immense, we're being creative about how we staff. We're actively looking at recruitment. We still have 2 critical positions that are not funded that are very critical to the CIP, which is our principal civil engineer and our city engineer. So once those recruitments are filled, it's gonna help provide a lot more support to our staff. But our staff is doing a tremendous job, and they should be applauded for the work that they do. So I feel like these 3 pictures represent where we were to where we're headed. So I think this is a slide that I think really is very telling. So we initially tried to compare CIP budgets. We initially tried to compare staffing, but it wasn't an apples to apples comparison because every city is slightly different. So what we did is we took a comparison from similar sized cities. So the axis from Huntington Beach to Santa Ana represents the cities with smaller to larger populations. So the cities below are 4 cities that are slightly below in population, and the cities to the right are cities that are above us in population. With the help of finance, they helped us prepare this slide. So each city represents the number of projects per project manager. So in the case of Huntington Beach, they have 5 projects per project manager. So excluding San Bernardino, on average, is on just this data set is seven per project manager. The industry average is about 7 to 10. Here in San Bernardino, we're managing 47 projects per project manager. So when you tell me why projects are not being moved forward, it's because the workload is just immense. We're trying to prioritize, we're trying to triage, and the staff is doing a great job of doing that, but trying to bring projects forward, and it seemed like the previous methodology was we doubt what was recent. So that's why on this list, you see a lot of projects that are pre-2018 that we're trying to move forward, because those are projects that as council members, you guys want to bring to your respective, and as the city as a whole, we want to make these improvements. So we're actively looking at our model. You know, we thank the council for their confidence in the staff augmentation. The staff augmentation that was approved will help us with the project manager. We just hired Mr. Mendez as another project manager. As we present the items in the workshop, there's also going to be specific discussion about staffing. So all in all, staff is doing a great job of moving this project forward. But with additional resources and help, we can start delivering these projects at a faster, more efficient, for a more efficient rate. Can you advance the next slide? It's not yeah, I know, right? So with that said, the recommendation that you have before you is to receive and file the update regarding the city's capital improvement program, and to approve the resolutions. And we apologize that the resolution is not listed right here. Authorizing the agency director of finance to amend the capital improvement plan, recording supplemental appropriations in the amount of $1 million from the capital contingent reserve fund for the Cross Street Bridge project, $1,040,258 for Measure S for the Genevieve Circuit Lighting Project, and $1,243,294 for Measure S for the Ralston Circuit Lighting Project.
I move for staff recommendation.
I'll second, but I want to add something that's is germane to the conversation. We should really be having a serious conversation of creating a priority list on CIP projects, because otherwise, council has no say in what project moves forward. Typically, city manager's office will present an item on, hey, we need approval from the council to allot a certain amount of funding for X project or XY project, whatever the case is. And there is no council input, maybe at least not in the open, on which one should take priority when it comes to funding. Because, and I don't know if you have this information readily available, but there are plenty of projects that don't have secured funding sources. And as funding becomes available, staff then looks and, I guess amongst themselves, pick what they will present to council for funding. Am I wrong?
No, I don't have the history with San Bernardino of late. So Daniel or the finance person would be better positioned to answer that question. But I can go in terms of industry standards, you know, what normally is the practices of other cities. And that is when you're going through your CIP process, just as you're going through your budget process, the council, just like in terms of setting priorities for your budget, you will also set priorities for your capital improvement projects. So if that's not happening, then that's a fault in the system.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that the council has not in the past been able or didn't take the opportunity to prioritize that, then that's totally something that you can correct at any point in time.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're gonna have to do, because right now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no priority list, right? There is no, hey, these 15 projects take priority, barring, of course, for example, the Cross Street Bridge, right, which just collapsed and left people stranded. Barring a situation like that, these are the 15 capital improvement projects that we're going to focus on, that need to get done before we start considering all these other projects. We don't have that list, right?
So like the Genevieve and Ralston, you know, those are safety related. There's a lot of, so these are projects that are already in the hopper, right? They're already projects that are approved by the council. So we're trying to identify, we're perfectly trying to balance where it's at in the current stage of the different phase of the project, as well as what the funding need. So these projects that we've taken on in the 144, some of these were already in the pipeline and had already started beginning the process of being worked on.
Yeah, no, and I get those, but I'm talking about and I don't know if you have this slide, but I mean, maybe you do. Do you have a slide of projects, CIP projects that are maybe in the planning phase, completed the planning phase, but have no funding for construction and completion? Do you have that?
So we don't have that broken down, but some of the slides that were on the list are wrapping up funding. So we're gonna come back to the point where staff is gonna evaluate the funding, based on what the excess funds that are available. As we saw right now in the recommendation, there's about $1.7 million from Measure S. So depending on the funding source and what's funding that project and what's eligible, we could look at those funding sources.
Well, but that's the thing, is that sometimes there are two projects that could compete for the same funding. The SB1 funding, Measure S funding. This council doesn't decide, well, this one over this one. Right now, it's staff saying, hey, we'll push this one forward for council to set aside funding for. And what I would like to do is that this council, and it would have to be in the near future, would be presented with a list, maybe even a shortened list of, hey, these are projects that we're not sure where the funding's gonna come from for. Maybe we did design already, but we don't have funding secured for construction and completion. Of this maybe shortened list, can the council as a whole prioritize, as the legislative body of this municipal government, can you guys give us a list? Can you guys come up with a list of 15 that need to be priority?
So
because right now, there's no input from the council, right?
So I'll defer some of the policy decisions. Like, I know Charles probably wants to, because we have talked about, and he did mention it at one of our council meetings, about the council creating a policy that helps prioritize that, creating a quantitative system. But for your specific request, the projects that are already in the pipeline that are close to finishing, say, a design phase that doesn't have construction dollars allocated to it, we can put together that list, and we can just itemize the list for you, and then we can bring back to the council on what projects want to be prioritized.
Okay. Can we do something like that? Because right now,
that shouldn't be difficult.
Yeah, because I think the council needs to opine on what's going to take priority. I mean, Councilmember Calvin brings it up every time. Why isn't this project priority? And then I'm sure there's a couple things here where I say, well, this should be moving up in the list, but staff will sometimes recommend, hey, we have a funding source has opened up. We recommend you guys expend this money on such and such project. I mean, I don't mind taking recommendations, but I think there should be a list of 15, maybe 15, 12 CIP projects that the council has approved as top priority.
It's totally doable.
Okay.
And again, I would say that now is the time to do it, because you would normally do that when you're going through the evaluation before you adopt the CIP. But we can still go back and make that kind of adjustment. What I was hearing Councilwoman Calvin say, and maybe it also was council needing to set the priorities, but what I was hearing her more say was that she was concerned about priorities being changed, that the council would adopt, and then some people would go back, or council would go back and change it, and reorder the priorities, and that would affect her ward projects she thought had already been approved. And then
but we don't have a priority list. They're all just there.
But I'm just saying that's what I was hearing from her.
Yeah.
I think the mayor has her hand up. Mayor Tran, do you want to make a comment, or?
I do, thank you so much, Mayor Protem. I don't disagree that, we need to prioritize all stuff, and I think that's what's very important, and that's why this extensive update by its staff is so critical to know where all of our CIP projects are at where it's heading, and reprioritize. Get those updates, right? So that's why it's so critical that we have CIP updates on practically on an annual basis until we get caught up and know where we're heading to ensure that the funding is identified, council is well informed and well versed on everything and making informed decisions as we move forward. So it's, you know, we're taking steps, the right direction already tonight. And it's very critical that we continue this CIP updates on an annual basis. Thank you.
Thank you. I certainly agree. I think probably everyone agrees with that. Again, I'm gonna go back to the word, you know, staff is paid to do certain things, and we're part-time and we're not involved in everything and see how this might affect this. I'd like prioritizing, but it's hard to prioritize when you have 7 people all fighting for, and was said early in the evening, was that we should be looking at this as a citywide thing, and I would want to put the trust in staff to come up with a list, and they make that priority, but it's certainly up to us to finally adopt. And with the priority list, there should be a justification or a rationale for why we put this at the top, why we're not doing this one. Because that's going to help us all say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. It's not just the 40th and Electric that's been on the CIP list forever for that intersection, but to see why it's not being done or why it should be done or why it should be prioritized. So I think with that, is there any other further questions, comments
Just a
on this item? Yes, sir.
clarification.
No, we get to the end of it, I wanted to have, before we leave.
I think we have a second item. But this one, we have a second, I mean, a first and a second, we need a vote on it, I guess. And so we can just go around, our city clerk can call the roll.
Just a quick legal,
Yeah.
for legal. So the ones that have already been approved and budgeted, that's just a receive and file. The only things that we're actually taking action on would be those 3. So anything previously approved, we don't have to recuse ourselves or something if it's within that 500 feet.
That's right. The first item, the first item of the recommendation was just to receive and file the update generally on the program. That's the full list of projects. That's an update on that. You're not taking any action on that. You're taking action on the resolution that specifically affects those 3 projects. So unless you have a conflict on one of those 3 projects, then I would recommend that you're okay.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, Councilmember Sanchez, what you added, did you want to make that part of the motion, or was that just your thoughts?
This is mostly just something for the staff to consider here. I mean, I think it's germane to the conversation, but it's not direction, it's mostly just, I mean, if you guys want me to formalize that, I'll formalize it and I'll bring it back as an item for council consideration, but I think it's important that we have that priority list and that it's something that we all agree on. Otherwise, it's 2 council members going into your office and saying, hey, look, this really has to get done. So the next time we have a tranche of Measure S money or SB1 money or Measure I money, let's get that funded. So I'd rather the whole council opine on our list of 15. And, you know, I will take into account, I mean, staff should recommend what that priority list should be and then approved by the council as a whole.
Well, I mean, what we will do from here
Yeah.
is to take the comments that have been made here. We will bring that back to council, so you have an opportunity to review it. If there are changes you want to make at that point in time, you can then agendize that if there are changes you want to make.
No, I mean, not changes. I mean, like I said, we don't,
Well,
additions.
changes, it would be reprioritizing would be changes.
Yeah. Was there a
If, in other
priority
words-
list now?
Well, if there was one. You're talking about going forward, right?
Yes.
And with the priority list down the road, it comes to staff, and then we kick it around, and we either agree with staff, or we make some tweaks to it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's call for the question.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Alexander.
Yeah, the motion is to accept the staff recommendation, correct?
Okay,
On both 1 and 2, yeah.
so Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes.
Mayor, Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And Councilmember Alexander?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso asked me to ask the staff and then make sure that his wishes about Hudson Park, Littlefield, and Schultz Parks, their bathrooms are closed. So I know Liddy is gone. But city manager, please note that Hudson, Littlefield, and Schultz Parks, he would like those bathrooms addressed. Hudson, Littlefield, and Schultz. Hudson? Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 2, resolution adopting a list of projects under SB 1 2023/2024 Road Maintenance Program, approving cooperative funding agreement with County of San Bernardino for Mountain Drive and 4th Avenue project, approving the cooperative funding agreement with the County of San Bernardino for 5th Street at Pedley Road project, and authorizing the agency director of finance to amend the FY 2023 or 23-24 capital improvement plan, recording supplemental appropriations. It is recommended that the mayor and city council of the city of San Bernardino adopt the following. I need to read all these 4. I will. I don't need to? Okay. Is there a presentation on this, or this is actually part of what we just saw? Yeah,
Yes, it is a part of what you just saw.
right. So I need a motion.
How much of the SB1 money is there? How much do we have available to us?
So we do have Mr. Okandamirsi, our contract CIP manager, who can answer some questions regarding the SB1 fund.
No.
So, basically, every year, this is an annual reporting requirement. So the city receives an appropriation. The current upcoming fiscal year 23-24, the estimate is $5.5 million that the city will receive $5.5 million from through RMRA funds, RMRA SB1 funds for fiscal year 23-24.
And how much is being expended here and with how much is being funded through here? How much, because there's allocations for various streets. How much is the total? I
So
wonder how much is left over?
yeah, so the staff is recommending to basically utilize all those funds in the amount of $5.5 million.
So this adds up to 5.5 million?
There is portion of the SB1 funds currently allocated as well to current projects.
Yeah.
So this is basically the available funds that the city will be receiving in fiscal year 23-24. The recommendation is to utilize all those funds to these 10 projects.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, all right. And these are all, I think I recognize these, but these are all projects that were on the CIP list to begin with, right? All these?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
All these are with SB County? 9 of them, okay, all right.
They are currently not funded completely with SB1 funds, but the recommendation is to use SB1 funds to basically bridge the gap in the funding shortfall for these projects, because some of these projects are not fully funded at this time. They are the county co-op projects, so the recommendation is to utilize SB1 funds to be able to fully fund these projects so we can start, and most of these projects are county co-op projects. So, and some of these projects, and I can go in detail too, the county team is ready to move forward in some of them. So that's why the recommendation is to utilize SB1 funds so we can start construction phase in some of these projects basically. And I'll be happy to go in detail in every of, like, there's 10 projects in this list.
Okay, the other funding source here is like, oh wait, is the SB1 and the gas tax, those are the same, aren't they?
So in order to be eligible to receive the SB1 funds, there is a maintenance of effort requirement. So every city in California eligible to receive the SB1 funds, they are required to basically utilize local funds, usually it's gas tax, to be able to remain eligible to receive the SB1 funds. In this case, the city's MOE on page 3 of the staff report is identified as approximately $1.2 million That's the maintenance of effort, which means that the city will need to appropriate $1.2 million of local funds in order to remain eligible to receive the $5.5 million of RMRA funds.
Okay,
So that's a state requirement.
okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion
Most so moved.
Second.
and a second? Ms. Clerk, call.
Yes, sir.
Contingency reserve money?
Councilmember
Roll.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
and Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. City Manager, did you have some closing remarks or some comments?
I do.
Go ahead, please.
And thank you. First of all, I want to thank the council for being here and participating in this discussion. I know it requires additional time, and you folks are very busy. And I also want to thank Daniel and his staff. They put in a lot of work to get to this point. One of the items, and let me not forget Edie over here and our management staff, because she was part of the team that was working with Daniel, along with our other management analysts and Barbara. This was a team effort to bring the requisite folks to the table to sit down from various angles, be it finance or our office and Public Works and also Park and Rec, because they have a huge stake in what goes on here, obviously. What I want to say, though, is what we are attempting to do here, because when I was informed that you as a council had not been able or structured to have this kind of review, I mean, that's just something I'm not accustomed to. At this level, when you're dealing with something of this significance, the council should be heavily involved in your CIP. And you have residents out there who are asking you questions over and over again about narrow streets, about lighting, about parks. And Daniel indicated that, he's been under the gun like a lot of departments have been with with limited staff, trying to do some monumental tasks to bring this forward. But one element is consistently missing throughout the organization, and part of my responsibility is to make sure we shore that up. And that is really providing some structure underneath all this so that we develop systems that allow for these kinds of things to get done on a regular basis, and it's not haphazard. And part of that system is, while staff is working on that, we also need to make sure that we are setting up systems to report out to you, provide regular information, regular updates to you and the community about what we're doing, so you give feedback to us. And, something like the CIP, you can't, in my opinion, go a year or 2 years without bringing that to the council and allow you to weigh in. So hopefully this was helpful. But my goal is to have this a regular discussion, whether 6 months or annual basis, where you get to weigh in, establish priorities, allocate money to it, talk to your constituents and see where their needs are and that we are addressing that. But part of that system is not just with Public Works. I mean, there are many areas throughout the organization where my job is to instill those structures where we update, where we set normal standards, measurement standards, and we're also, as you pointed out, not acting in a knee-jerk fashion simply because of political pressure by one council member or another. We have to do a better job at that, and that is really the responsibility of the city manager, first and foremost, to ensure that staff is not dragged into that and staff is doing their job and we're operating off of data. And that says clearly, here are the things that should be priority that we should be recommending to you, and the final stop is your call. And you make whatever adjustment that you need to make. But I think, as I said, staff has done a great job, but this is just the beginning. We have Friday's session coming up in a few days, and you will see the same process repeated on a number of different other topics, like the infrastructure and like economic development and homeless. Really, we need to do a better job instead of providing that underlying systems where it's a regular process. It's like clockwork. And you get a lot more information and the residents, community get a lot more information, and we're held accountable to the public and the council that we serve here. So with that, I just say, part of that work is going to be an ongoing, the sausage making behind the scene as staff does. But when it comes to you, it's out publicly, we want to make sure it's well done. And part of that is also, you mentioned it earlier about trust. I think it's important that the council and the staff have a level of trust that what we're doing is of quality, it is meeting your standards, meeting community standards, and that we work together in a partnership. And I'm hoping that during this process and the others, that's the goal. That's what we're working toward. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager. Mayor, would you like to have a comment to end this on?
Applaud the city manager, his leadership, and the staff's, work. So this is great, and council making great progress tonight. So thank you, council, for your progress tonight. So that's all. Great job, team.
Thank you, Mayor and Joy. And we'll adjourn 8:47 until the next special meeting of the mayor and city council, and the mayor and city council acting as a successor agency to the redevelopment agency will be held on June 30th, 2023 at the multipurpose conference room, second floor, 201 North E Street, San Bernardino. Open session will begin at 9 a.m. That's this Friday at 9 a.m. So we're adjourned until Friday morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you all.